So welcome to the Good Vibrations review of Clown World 2023. Life is, after all, completely absurd and completely ridiculous. So sometimes the only appropriate way of dealing with it is to laugh at it in its face. With me are a bunch of guys who I suspect are as jaded and cynical and world weary as me. So they're ideal guys for the job. So first off, we've got Dom and Chris of Sheep Farm Studios. Welcome, fellas.
Good evening, Matt.
Evening.
Any witch piss tonight, Chris?
Yes, I have. I've got a bottle of Grenache primed and ready.
Grenache. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
I'd
that
have
from
been
the Beano?
disappointed.
Grenache.
Also, we've got Lance and Andy PG of Rise Above. Welcome, fellas.
Thank you very much for having us back, Mr. Devlin. It's always a pleasure, mate.
How's it going, guys?
Thank
Right,
you.
Andy.
Yeah, we did this last year, so it's only right we do it again and see if we've moved on at all since Clown World
Our little yearly
2022.
meetup.
And also in the background, I've got my good friend Nathan Lucius, who's right here with me in, I would call it a studio, but it's not quite that.
Not as posh as theirs, but you know, we're getting there. Hello, guys. You all right?
How's it going, Nathan?
How you doing, Nate?
It's not Rise Above standards, but, you know, we don't all have MI6 Tavistock budgets to pay for business.
So we've got Devlin and Lucius. Very dodgy. I'm sorry.
Devlin,
Instant red flag.
Instant
red
stick.
flag.
And Lance Murdoch, Rupert's nephew.
Yeah.
Mate, if I had £1 for every time I'd had someone have a go on the internet about my surname, I would probably have £33,000 by this point, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I think I'd have 666.
666, yeah.
Yeah.
Keeps popping
All
up.
right. So where to even start with a show of this nature? Maybe we should start by considering some psyops. Some of the psyops that were in full flow during the months of 2023. I thought a good one to address might be, first off, the ongoing Q white hats Trump is going to save the day psyop, which incredibly in some quarters is still running. So it just amazes me that at the dawn of 2024, there are still people invested in this narrative. I guess it's because it's election year and people think that miraculously things are going to turn around when Donald Trump steams in to save the day. But yeah, it's just amazing this one is still going, isn't it?
I mean, these are some patient people, Mark.
And trusting.
Yeah.
Really trusting.
Yeah.
They must really, really, really trust that plan.
The thing is,
At this point,
that's
a high level of trust.
The thing
right
is,
there,
though, in regards to the election, I'm not seeing nearly as much Trump-esque promotion or posts or, you know, people
Nothing
quote unquote
like-
falling for the psyop.
Nothing
this
like it
time
was
round.
last time, but I think what's happened is those who are still caught up in it have sort of, much like people are caught up in the Soviet narrative, right? What they've basically done, they've either had to sort of slink into the background and just not mention it anymore, or double down.
Yeah.
So when I see people, especially in the last 12 months in 2023, still posting Q drops, still talking about the little hats coming, white hats coming to save us. Like in my opinion, they seem to get a bit more extreme, and obviously because they're being countered with an increasing amount of people that have either seen it was bullshit from the start, or like us, we were a bit taken back by it.
I thought it was very interesting.
I thought it was super interesting, some of the information that was in.
However, the thing which made me very skeptical was all this about RFK.
Yeah, that was such a.
Is it RFK? Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming back. Who was allegedly assassinated, blah blah.
Oh, you mean RFK Senior?
Junior. Yes. Junior,
Yeah, the
that's
junior.
Right. Yeah. Who I think he died in a helicopter.
Yeah, he died in a
accident.
helicopter
Oh,
crash.
JFK Jr.
No, yes, JFK Jr. And apparently he died in a helicopter crash, which was a thing. But apparently he was kept, you know, underground, so to speak, and was going to be wheeled out
with Michael Jackson
and
and Marilyn Monroe.
And there was do you remember who was the dude? Who was the dude who was at the Trump rallies all the time?
There was about 2 or 3 characters
And
which
he
were supposed to beat him, and people are doing the photo face, the photo fits and the face matches. But what I was saying is, these die-hard people that are still into it now, they've got more people talking about Operation Trust, that thing that the Soviet Union did, which was basically Q, right? So
They just rebranded
they're
it.
getting more and more defensive, and they're actually getting more and more dogmatic about it. And I never knew that as much as this year. I can't remember what month it was. It wasn't that long ago when we did the expose on the Sound of Freedom movie.
The Sound of Freemasonry.
How dare you?
Sound of Freemasonry.
Yeah.
Literally, I had at least dozens of people with, you know, the Q in their logo profile picture going mad at me. Obviously, I was by default a paedophile and a Satanist.
So that just
because I was questioning the fact that they might have been. And I was
Makes
like, guys,
sense, yeah.
at least do 10 seconds of research into what I've been going on about for years before you make such a stupid comment. You know, I'm actually trying to save you from being fooled here in a like a very spectacular way.
Lance, when you think of the white hats, what comes to your mind? I mean, there must be there's quite a few stains on those white hats now. They're not quite as sparkly clean, are they? As
Well, do you know what it is for like your sort of like average MAGA Yahoo Trump American type? I believe what they see a white hat is like, you know, in like 1990s like military movies where when they're in the white, literally the white military hats in the all right regalia, and there's a guy with like a chiseled jaw. You know, that's obviously what they're seeing.
I imagine. Do you know what I imagine?
Flag in the background, like
fireworks going off.
Fireworks,
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
I imagine the doozers off Fraggle Rock.
Yes, Dom.
But with little white hats on.
Yeah, little white hats on, the little doozers from
Or
Fraggle Rock. Taking us
The
back, innit?
KKK.
Yeah, they were white
KKK.
hats.
Yeah.
You know?
They've got better script writers in Hollywood, haven't they, QAnon? The scripts are brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
I think that the cleverest thing is the script is writing itself now. Like the Q drops actually stopped for a large amount of time. There was you know, they sort of have like periodic breaks, but even in between, because it's now that is being what's the word, sort of like re-manifested in the minds of like millions of like borderline proper nuts truthers, that they're creating they're just looking at the mainstream media, what's giving them, and creating their own narrative.
See
that Q all over the top. Of it.
These people you're describing there are the same people who were having a go at you online when you did the Sound of Freemasonry.
100%.
Are the Q
guys,
people far right or far left, or sort of like in the middle?
I'm not sure, but
Which side are they on
guys,
this week?
Lance has coined a term to me which I find fucking hilarious, and I get it out as much as I can at the moment. So this was in a private message between me and Lance when he upset someone online. He called these people Poundland Jeremy Kyle truthers. I really like that term.
That was over kit.
That was over the candy kittens.
Candy Gate.
I think only a rapper can say that and sound good. Yeah.
One
with a Yorkshire accent, it sounds shite.
My biggest alarm bell for QAnon was my friend who thinks I'm a nut job. It was him who said to me, "I bet you believe in all that QAnon nonsense." And I said, "I don't know what it is. What's that?" And then I looked and found out what it was. The fact that
the other thing,
as a person who thinks I'm crazy and is a bit of an
so it was used as an insult.
Yeah, that's it. The other thing in regards to the Q thing, that was I think that had multiple angles for the reason why they did it. It made load of people lay down their arms that could have fucking taken up arms against some people with all the shit that's coming out about the fucking paedophilia and all that kind of stuff, Hollywood and all that. And then at the same time, it mind controlled a load of people into not looking at where they should have been looking. And it was just one big shit show right at the end of it.
Yeah. It caused a load of Americans with beards and baseball caps and a cabinet full of guns to leave them in there.
Yeah.
Instead of taking up arms and taking to the streets.
And also it convinced a load of regular people that didn't even have any guns to go to that thing that happened at the when was it? Was it January the 6th?
January 6th, yeah.
You know, with the Q shaman with the horns and everything.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that wasn't real?
Well, I've seen that a lot of people that went to that just thinking they were going to some sort of protest, basically got like pretty heavy charges.
Yeah.
If that's true, well, that's just part of the play as well. I don't know, but it's
I heard someone say that guy in the bearskin hat had more photos than he did at his wedding.
I mean,
photographs
all of this, you think about it, right? They quote unquote stormed the Capitol, yeah.
Of course they did.
We all know they got let in. But you think about it. You think of all the stupidity surrounding the whole of the entire Q narrative. Them doing that at the Capitol. The JFK Jr. coming back. The white hat's going to save everyone. I think you think
Guantanamo Bay. Everyone goes
Guantanamo Bay. All that. You think, right? All of these people who are following the Q narrative and are that way inclined are generally speaking the same people who didn't want to go to the Britney Spears concert, Right. So that then has tarnished the entire amount of people who didn't want to go to Britney Spears concert because they could say, "Oh, you're one of them QAnon extremists who anti-vax." You know that
Like
thing.
my
So
friend said to me.
there's multiple reasons for they did this Q psyop. It was
Let's
fucking
not forget
genius.
also.
Man.
Let's not forget also that Q was the name of James Bond's boss out of British military intelligence. Is there a clue there?
So
No coincidence, Mark. No.
Well, not his boss, but his armorer, quartermaster.
But if you think about it, like that's
Exactly.
a kind of genius aspect to it, because it never openly said it was the American military, but there were heavy references in those early Q drops to alluding to the fact.
Has anybody ever met one? A Q
What,
drop. Has anybody ever? Nobody's stood on a mic and said, "I run Q."
no, but what? But
I'm part
again,
of Q.
Charlie Ward knows him.
Does
Charlie
he?
Ward,
Fantastic.
yeah, he takes
Live
regular
next door
calls
to
from
him.
Q. He's like, I just got off the phone from Q. The emergency broadcast system is next Tuesday at 2:30, guys. Okay.
you remember? I remember as well when Trump was talking at one of his rallies, he did some hand gesture. And people were saying, "Oh, he just made the Q sign."
Yeah, he spelled out a Q.
Yeah, he spelled out a Q in the air or something.
But here's the thing: if it is a psyop as spectacular as we're proposing it is, right? Then Trump would have definitely been in on it.
for
But
sure,
how
mate.
could you?
Yeah,
How could you take
100%.
anybody serious who's got the complexion of a quaver? I mean,
The
I don't-
orange man, do you remember all that?
Yeah. I just don't understand how anybody could take him serious with that.
I saw one where they
syrup and
They tied in that he got loads of gold makeup on. I forget how they tied it in. Something to do with yellow or gold or something.
I mean, it looks
That
horrific.
probably
doesn't
came
it?
from
And it
Charlie
stopped-
Freak, to be fair.
It stops
Was it?
there. There's like a tide mark under his
To
chin
be
of
fair,
orangeness.
Well, the trouble is with the Q thing is it's the human using nature against us, which is being hopeful that something's going to happen. So that's why people got.
That's what's so cruel about this whole thing
Yeah.
to me, because it's taking well-meaning people that want to have
From
some
Poundland.
hope that things are going to improve and exploiting their good nature.
Yeah.
It's cruel. It's very cruel.
That was some high grade, uncut, raw opium.
Yes, it
Throwing-
was.
throwing
One
hope
pipe,
at it,
one
yeah.
pipe of that
Yeah.
for you later. And that's what it took. One Q drop, people were hooked. And how long has it been going on now?
Opium.
Yeah,
Nice,
raw,
mate,
uncut
nice.
opium. I think when did it start? Was it early 2018 or late 2017?
Oh, late 2017. first
Yeah,
drops.
yeah. No, it was way before.
I'm
way
way
after the
behind it because
election,
I'd
but
never even
way-
heard
It's
of
way
it.
almost as if they
before
knew
COVID
Convid was coming, isn't it? But,
Yeah. But the
it
one
was.
thing they never addressed, right? All the people that are bang into it, which are also against the Britney Spears concert by default, they never referenced that Q didn't predict the Soviet Union. Right? If they're doing intelligence drops to sort of to help people to trust the plan, at least give us a heads up about the Soviet Union.
Also, didn't
Like-
Trump head up Operation Warp Speed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Just for extra comedy.
That must have been part of the Q drops as well.
He was very proud of it as well.
Yeah,
it's
very
all a
proud.
movie.
Space
It's all a
Force.
movie, guys.
Yeah.
Just makes Lawrence of Arabia look like a 5-minute bit feature.
Yes.
Does anyone know what the plan
Yeah,
is? No.
I mean, do we actually know what the plan is? I mean, we have to supposed to trust the plan, but we don't know what the plan is, except for a few people
The
who,
plan is to trust it.
by the thousands, keep getting Q drops, but they don't supposed to tell us about the Q drops, even though they're widely available to everybody about some
It's-
secret information that everyone knows.
Charlie
It's-
Ward knows.
Yeah.
It's a religious outlook. It's a religious dogmatic outlook. You think about it. If you think down from a psychological basis, these people are just gagging for a savior.
Yeah.
It's someone else to come and save them.
Yeah, it's
Someone
very
else to
So
do
you
the
don't
work.
have to do anything.
It's fucking Jesus written all over it. It's got Jesus written
Or
all
Ed
over it.
Sheeran.
Yeah,
Ed
well, yeah,
Sheeran will
you know.
sort it.
I
yeah.
don't remember any Q drops recommending that people take care of their health, do deep introspective work, learn about meditative breathing.
Right.
I don't. Why didn't if Q's what it said it was supposed to be? Why didn't it tell people to start looking after their health before early 2020?
And grabbing some ivermectin.
Yeah. Get some of that horse paste comrade.
Yeah. Another thing which really gained some traction in 2023, which may or may not be a psyop, depending on your viewpoint, is this whole idea of the soul trap, the reincarnation loop, trapped by the light. This idea that the deceptions and the lies that we experience in this life are not over even when we leave our bodies and pass over, and that somehow there are these entities which have gained a way of tricking us into walking into this tunnel of light that we experience, and then getting spat right back out in the matrix and reincarnated as food and loose energy for the demonic entities that preside over this realm. So this entire idea really gained a lot of traction, as I say, in the past year. David Icke put out a book about it, which certainly helped it. What do we all think about this? Is there any relevance to it? Is this itself a psyop? Is it possible that the trickery and deception even continues into the spirit world? It's a bit disturbing if it does.
I'll kick off if it's all right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. In my opinion, right, the soul trap resurgence idea that's come around in the last couple of years is certainly nothing new. People have been talking about this for decades, and it goes back thousands of years. The idea of the reincarnating soul trap, you could really take that from a very deep level from Buddhism. This also echoes a lot of the stuff in the Gnostic texts about the archons tricking us into this illusionary reality. So, in my opinion, right, like many things, some of these ancient teachings are obviously becoming a lot more relevant because people are having this or some people certainly are having this awakening process. Like many things, it gets mixed up with some new age ideas. I mean, as we know, when ideas start to go mainstream, when they come out of small groups, out of small discourses, small discussions, and they get broadcast, especially through the channels that the other force controls, they're going to get not just diluted, they're going to get subverted. And they can be laced with other semantic layers of meaning. So something that could be put to you as, here's a test for you to build and transcend, it can be remixed into, shit, you're in a demonic soul trap where you can never get out. Live with that. Now, here's the thing. If we are in an archontic rebirth cycle where there are energy parasites feeding off our negative fear, then I tell you what, convincing people inside the energy harvesting factory that they were living in a demonic soul trap that they can never escape from, that would certainly induce more fear. So that's okay.
The Monsters Inc. The Monsters Inc. paradigm.
Yeah. And many people, including myself, have sort of pondered over the idea that the Great Awakening, as some people have called it, Lee from Inner Guardians said this. He called it the Dark Enlightenment. Because at the end of the day, if people are coming to the realization of these deep spiritual esoteric truths, and that is true, that there really are parasitic demonic forces just outside of our visible light spectrum that deliberately interfere with the world and make it a very fearful and hateful place to extract all that loose out of us, that's quite a big thing to wake up to. And if it's delivered to you in a malevolent way that's got an evil intent within it, then it can be weaponized against you. I'll finish off before I pass it over to someone else. Through my own experiences with using plant medicine and shamanic practices,
drugs.
I certainly that's an educated way to say hallucinogens. Yes, Chris, and a lot of preparation.
We're from Yorkshire, man. Just say it how it is.
Yeah, I lend towards this theory. I don't see it as a soul trap. I see it like the Buddhists and the Hindus look at this world of Maya, of illusion, as a test, something to ascend through and to work past, not to get eternally trapped in. That's the whole test. That's my take on it.
I remember Dom rang me up and mentioned this to me, didn't you, Fi? Middle of last year, I think. And I said to him, I can't get stressed out about what happens afterwards because we've got enough dealing with what's going on right now. And whatever it is, I'll deal with it when I get to it. I'm not going to wind myself up worrying.
Cross that bridge when I come to it.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the psyop of that. You're stressed now. We've got another psyop for you, and it's when you're dead. You're going to worry about that one.
Yeah.
You know?
And what if that's the psyop? What if the advice to walk away from the light into whatever lies in the opposite direction is the psyop?
Yeah.
Is that part of the big push as well to this assisted dying shove that's going on at this moment in time? Because if they're shoving people down the road that even when you die, it's shit, but we're going to make it so shit here that you're going to want to die.
You've seen them suicide pods?
Exactly, yeah. The suicide pods.
Stress, fear whirlwind, isn't it?
This was in the movie Soylent Green in 1973.
Yeah, we spoke about that in that last podcast, didn't we, Mark? That got
And
banned on YouTube.
It was in Futurama as well.
Life is so unbearable that you will pay to be released from it.
As Esther Rancid's doing at the moment, apparently.
Or advertising.
It is, Chris, you're right. That is on Futurama. I used to watch that show when I was.
Yeah, they had him in the street, suicide pods, like a telephone
right.
box, just walking it in.
Hey, you just made me remember, and I posted this on Facebook. I happened to go to a Christmas market in Southampton Town Centre with my family just before Christmas, right? And,
This is where I leave. Yeah.
Right, okay. I have to do something like this once a year.
I know.
You know? Now, you've seen the one, they've got this Arctic bar outside, and there's like, you've seen this high street, right? So I asked, where's the toilet? And I've got a photo of it. I look for the sign for the toilet, which is next to the bar. So there's a red sign saying toilets. And directly underneath the toilet sign, you know, like a lamppost with the pointy sign, directly underneath the toilet sign in green, opposed to red, is a sign for the defib centre. Right. And I was like, wow, that's pretty blatant. The defib sign is as important and prominent as the toilet sign. And I go back and there's a load of portaloos there. And in the middle of the portaloos is this huge, futuristic, oversized looking phone box with a computer screen in it. So it was called like a sort of like, it looked like a Coviet health center, right? And you have to go on the screen and you have to speak to someone before they unlock the defib if you're having a coinciditis attack. And like, so I made a big post about it. I was like, you know, look at this. It's literally a fucking Coviet, like anti-coincidental center right in the middle of the high street. But I'd never seen anything like it. And then I said, next year's Christmas market will have an assisted suicide pod right next to the hog roast, right?
That'd be quite handy, actually, wouldn't it? Pop them straight on the roast
Give it
machine.
time.
Candy floss or assisted suicide.
Get your last meal.
But, you know, the way things are going, that, you know, honestly, when you see one of these pods, because they're going to be everywhere soon, I've never seen one before.
Well, Lance, I sent Dom an article yesterday, and it was a doctor on whoever advising to have a defib put in your house. So,
have you also noticed how many adverts on TV there are now for these apps with a little pad for you to be constantly checking your heart?
Isn't life brilliant?
See, this is the thing.
It's getting very convenient. Dying will be so convenient.
You think about
you could just defib yourself to death.
You think about it, right? I've seen as well in England. You know the red telephone boxes.
Yeah,
well, they haven't really got any fucking use for them.
I bet they can find a use for those.
They've been putting the defibrillators in there.
Yeah,
well, I've seen multiple in Bournemouth. Yeah. And you think about it as well, just when, again, getting back to the psychological factors about this, every time you walk down the road and you just like randomly see a defibrillator, that's putting into your mind that it's just common.
Imagine as well, Andy,
people to have heart attacks.
All the useless jump leads that I've got now because of all these electric cars, they better put them to use as well. The defibs, like a Swiss Army knife. Defib. Yeah.
Now, I remember the first time I saw, or the only defib that I ever saw on the street back in the day, way before the Coviet Union or any of that shit, was on Ashley Road, just up there, the main high street. It's not really a high street; it's got a road on it, but it was outside the Waitrose. There was a defib in the case. It's the first one we had, which I'd seen done. It was probably about 10, maybe 15 years ago. Now, back then, it made sense because Waitrose is frequented by old, rich people. Right, so they obviously get saved first. But like you say, now you're seeing a defib at the end of every street. They're putting defibs into schools,
telephone boxes, office blocks, everywhere.
These Coviet health centers.
One for your house.
Petrol stations. They're in petrol stations.
You'll be buying them on Amazon soon. Just
recharge your car, recharge yourself.
Version.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, funnily enough, we bought one at the boatyard because we actually had a customer keel over in front of us and die of a heart attack. What was it about? Probably 2018, 2019. So I think someone donated the money and we bought a defib. So I'm defibrillator trained and we've got one at the yard. You know, thankfully after that, we've never had to use it. Shame we didn't have it when the customer died. But yeah, so funny enough, last week, instead of the battery going, there was a beep and we scanned the Schwab code to see what's going on. And it said, you need to replace the pads. They've gone out of date. Fucking, it's
a big cash making machine as well.
They say, please pay bitch tits gates. The kickback might be a Microsoft pad you need to download or something like that.
Yeah, there'll be a monthly subscription soon to rent your own defib.
Give it teabag tits.
I remember talking to Dom, and when were it, Dom? Were it 2021? And I'd gone to a wedding in the middle of a village near where Dom lives. And in that process, I'd seen about 2 or 3 of them, and I'd never seen one before.
You mean that wedding where you were the only one not wearing a mask?
Yes.
Yeah. What excuse did you use? That your nostrils were too big for it?
I had one of those land cards.
I was waiting for the nose joke. How far are we into this recording? What?
Only about 20 minutes, something like that.
29 minutes.
Do you know that live one we did at Up Northlands? About 3 people said to me.
I meant to ask, how was that?
It was good. About 3 people said to me, I thought it were you, but your nostrils didn't look that big.
They were disappointed.
I know. And I said, because I've got small, normal nostrils. Dob's got massive nostrils.
They've been picking up your
That's the
nostrils
joke.
for years now. When they saw you in the flesh, they were no.
It can't be him. No, it can't be him. His nostrils
They
aren't big.
expected it like 2 manhole covers, but it weren't.
The nostrils did not live up to the hype, mate.
Just a pair of binoculars I'm carrying around.
Let everybody know.
Yeah.
What are we talking about again?
Anyway, I think
Binoculars.
the soul.
That's
So we're
what I was
talking
about.
about what happens to our souls after we leave this life, but somehow we got
I think
sidetracked.
I think that soul trap thing could be a psyop just to cause more stress, Matt. That's what I think personally.
Well, I like to think it is because it's a
Yeah.
pretty disturbing idea to come to terms with. You know,
And
the
it-
idea that you have to deal with that even when you've left this life after however
if
many
Maybe that
years of
concept
being
only applies to
lighted.
NPCs.
And if not, I would follow your instincts when you get there.
Like the white hats. Has anybody ever come back and told us, that? I mean, apparently people have had trips and stuff like this or near-death experiences and things like that, but there's no real raw evidence there, is there?
The only evidence that I've ever heard of, and I don't know how verifiable this was. I've read it in a mainstream source that there was a doctor in the late 90s or the early 00s in America that was doing in-depth research into this because he was a cardiologist. He'd seen so many people come back and then tell these stories about raising up above their body, looking down on the room, then drifting away either down a tunnel or towards the light. But the first thing was that they always started with, I came out of my body and I saw myself in the third person. So what he did, and if anyone has ever heard of this, please find the link.
I had that once in Hacienda, 93, I think it was.
Right.
I think I know this story. Yeah.
It's where
Smiley
the test
yellow
he
faces.
did. The test he did
yeah.
was he started hiding playing cards on top of those luminous tube lights that he had. They had these suspended tube lights in the operating theatre where people were dying, right?
Mm.
So he hid playing cards up there that were above everyone's head. No one could see them. And he said he had people come back after he'd done that, and they said that they told him. He said, "What was the playing card on top of the light?" And they got it right on like a number of occasions. Yeah, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm.
So again, don't take this as.
But again, Lance, that is good anecdotal evidence. And so if it was that important, which it is, why isn't the why aren't, again, bitch tits Gates investing in an NGO into looking into this and coming out with all these findings?
Maybe
Well,
not.
I would say
it's a rhetorical question, but yeah,
I would say that this kind of stuff, exactly what we're talking about here, the after death
is
part,
the core.
is probably one of the most researched things in these
Yes,
dark projects. There was a very good season about it on Netflix. Now I won't often praise things that are on Netflix, believe me, but this one was called the OA. It was called Original Angel. And it's basically about this young woman that had some sort of extrasensory perception, and she was taken in by this evil doctor and imprisoned, and was constantly made to die and come back while being in confinement. And he was doing it to a number of people. And what they actually worked out was that, the soul is eternal, essentially, and you can actually flip into other bodies and stuff like that. But
That's similar to that Keith Sutherland type thing, isn't it? That film, what was that film that they made in the 80s? Flatliners.
Yes,
Yeah.
Flatliners. Yeah,
Believe
so
it or not, I had an out of body experience. I don't know. I think I've talked about it on our show. I can
The
tell you,
Hacienda as well.
Mine
I have
wasn't
one every
drug
time I
induced.
talk to you.
It wasn't drug induced. I was only a kid, but it was. I could tell you if you want. But it's, yeah. Well, what happened was once I came home from a bit out with my mates. Must have been about 14, about 15 maybe. And our mum and dad, if they went out, we'd always know they were going out. And I came home and there was no one in. And Don were out because he was a bit older than me, so we were out in town or whatever. And I got a bit worried and I was a bit confused and worried. And I thought, I wonder where they are, And I went to bed and I had, I can only say it, I had this weird dream where I was floating in the corner of this room. I recognized the room because it was long and skinny. My dad was sat there and he had a plate of food on his knee. And there was a guy there with him. And I couldn't really see his face. And I went in worried. And then my dad started ranting about my mum. And he's like, oh, she was supposed to be home at 11. And where are they? And he was eating this food. And I thought, how weird. And I just started laughing in my drinks. I thought my dad's kicking off again. Anyway, the next morning, I wake up and I'm coming downstairs. My mum and dad are sat in the living room. And I explain this dream I had. They didn't say that was weird, right? My dad just started having a go at my mum again. Yeah, she'd gone over to Sean's house. Remember Sean? And do you remember he had a long rectangle, weird shaped living room? And my dad immediately started going, yeah, she went out with Sean's missus and we had the dinner ready when they got back at 11. They didn't get back till 12:30.
So you were basically having a dream about that?
I was watching it.
But instead of questioning your dream, he basically
Just
carried
started
on
having a go at my
the
mum.
argument with your.
They totally ignored everything I said. They totally ignored everything I said.
your out of body experience.
I was explaining an out of body experience, and they just started arguing about it. Well, we went to a pub, yeah, we don't know what time it shuts, and they just started having a row about it, and that were it. That
Typical, narrow-minded.
Have I never told you that story, though?
Yeah, you have,
yeah. But the weird thing was, it was Sean's room, because I'd only ever been to his house once. He lived over in Oldham, and it was a long rectangle room.
I think there is good, like Chris's story there, anecdotal evidence of what Lance was saying about that doctor with his playing card above the light and stuff like that.
But I think that was just putting my mind at ease, because I was really worried where everybody was. And it was
How
before
many
mobile
bad stories
phones,
are there?
So there was no one to ring. There was no notes or anything. So it was stress. I was stressed. And then it relieved my stress for some reason.
But how many bad stories are there? Like what Lance was talking about there, most of them stories were quite positive, weren't they? You know, that what he was saying, there was nobody coming back and saying it was just night terrors constantly when I got there.
Well, there's a real lack of warnings coming back from these people that have had these spiritual experiences, saying, here's what to expect when you cross over. You're faced with this dilemma of not knowing whether to walk into the light or not. No warnings of that nature.
No.
I never really came across this whole subject area until or during the last year or so, when it really became popular. Did you want to add something then?
Yeah, just before your outer body experience took place, do you remember any feelings or sensations? Because I had a few in my early 20s, and it was like clustered together in a certain period of life. And just before I went out, and like you find yourself at the opposite end of the room looking back down to yourself, and then you start exploring, but you can't move in a traditional way. You've got to use your mind. But do you remember any tunnels, any light, any buzzing sensations or noises, anything like that before you came out of the body?
No, I remember appearing in this spot and just looking down at them in that kind of action. But I'll tell you one thing I did used to have.
That's like teleportation, really, isn't it? Mental teleportation.
Well, it's an out body.
It's remote viewing, actually.
Yeah,
I'd say another
remote
thing
viewing,
Nev, I used to get this a lot, even up to not so long ago. And I used to get these flying experiences, literally flying out my bedroom window. And this sounds insane, right? But in this dream, it used to happen so often.
You are.
I learned to control it, and I could control it. What I mean is going up and down by kind of making my spine tingle. Like I could make it work. It sounds insane, but I could go down, and it got to a point where I was whooshing around. I remember I lived in London in the city when I was like 19. I remember having one of going out the window and like just bouncing off the rooftops. But it could have been just a dream. I don't know. I'm not saying that were anything weird.
In my
or
early
the
20s,
LSD.
It could have been LSD.
I think Nathan said something happened to him in his early 20s with this. I had the same thing. It was actually when I was living at uni. And as a student, I spent a lot of time just lying around, maybe sleeping during the day.
Doesn't sound like a student.
And on a number of occasions,
hard-working kids, students.
I was living in these digs that were, the building shape was round. And each room was like the shape of a wedge of cheese. They sort of look like Super Mario Land. It's East London Uni. People can see it when you land at City Airport. Really strange buildings. So we're in these little slither pizza-shaped rooms. And I could always feel it. I'd always be sort of lying there, you know, when you're sort of like half asleep, half awake, you might be listening to the TV. But sometimes you're hearing the TV and you're starting to visualize things in your head. Have you ever had that?
Yeah.
So that would be, for me, that would maybe be the start of it. And then I would sort of have, like Nathan said, like a tingling sensation. And I could actually physically feel myself coming up out of my body very, very slowly. The hardest bit was to sit up. And this happened on a handful of occasions. But once I managed to learn how to sit up and look back down at myself, the next thing I'd sort of do would stand up. The room was very small. The desk, the mirror, it was all right there. I could stand up straight from the bed and just look at this little mirror on the wall and look at myself in the mirror. And I was like, whoa, okay. And the furthest I got was just outside of my room, and I walked straight into my neighbour's room, this girl called Liz. And I remember walking to a room, standing.
You had your pajamas on, didn't you?
I don't recall whether I was wearing what I was wearing in my bed or whether I was naked or if I even had a body. I was concentrating so much on trying to move because I only saw my face in the mirror.
Yeah.
But when I got into her room in this out-of-body experience, I suddenly thought, she was lying in bed asleep. I suddenly thought, well, shit, is this real? This is well sketchy. And then I tried to leave, and then I suddenly came back into my body. That was the furthest I got into the room next door. So
So you have an out-of-body experience, and your first thing you do is go and perv on a
so you
girl.
have
You got the whole universe in your hands, lads.
So when you can walk
I go and
indoors,
watch my
first
dad
thing you do.
ranting, and you go and watch your bird in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
do,
it
do,
was,
do you know that other film, the Obama film? I know we might talk about that later on, but somebody, I don't know if you got an email. Somebody sent me somebody's downloaded the sound from it, and there's a low frequency. They're calling it a low frequency infrasound.
I just saw that, though. I just saw that.
Yeah,
Are you
do you see
talking
that?
about the Leave the World Behind?
Leave the world
Yeah,
behind.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That's a
actually a
cheery
weird sound.
watch, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've never seen so
Good Christmas
much like
film.
peasant programming. And
Yeah, for
fucking
sure.
stuff. Have you seen the
We
movie?
watched it the other day. Yeah,
What did
yeah,
you think?
It was fucking a shit ending, man. I was really annoyed.
Oh,
about
yeah,
it.
I wanted to know. I wanted
Yeah.
to see more.
Yeah,
I-
me
I
too.
just wanted to know more
Yeah.
because so much was thrown into
But
it.
you had the internet going down. You had that big ship just beach the beach, didn't you? That big cargo
Yeah.
tanker. What else was there? There was loads of stuff in it.
Oh no,
Who was
There
executive
there was the
producer?
Teslas. Do you remember all the Teslas, all the electric cars,
yeah,
just hanging into each other?
Yeah.
Like with nobody driving them.
I was saying to Dom on our show, we mentioned that briefly, and I was saying I think they've started making films for us nut jobs, unfortunately, and I think that was one of them.
Fringe magnets.
Like that.
Fringe magnets draw
that.
people in. Like all
Well,
these
not
things
only
are-
that, just how much time we waste talking about it and
Yeah.
looking into. Because I mean that was so blatant. Literally every moment had a conspiracy nudge
Yeah.
to it.
There-
Didn't it?
I saw
Every-
through at
one
least
after another, after
two
another. after another.
666 is in it.
Huxley's and living next door. to the
There was
Huxleys.
loads of symbols. There was
I haven't watched it,
Channel 4
so I
pretty
don't know.
much
Yeah.
immediately at the start of the movie.
we got all the spoilers on this film, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah.
But the one that I got from it mostly was the fact that the guy explains all this stuff, and then he says, "But it's worse than some big cabal being in charge. It's just chaos. No one's in charge."
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite. I think that was the point they were trying to make. That
Yeah,
no
and
one's
he
in
said, you know,
control of
the
anything.
best the elites can hope for is actually a heads up when this happens.
Yeah.
So,
That's
so-
for me. They're talking about some kind of reset.
well, yeah. I mean, the
That'll
only
never happen.
one thing that which I thought was very interesting was did you get the reference to Havana syndrome and that noise?
Yeah,
You
well,
know, the noise that happens in the
Oh,
film.
in Cuba. They,
And that's
yeah,
what I'm
what
saying.
they
they
did in
actually
Cuba.
referenced the real happening in Cuba,
Yeah.
where you know, maybe
I'll send it
hundreds-
you over, Lance, because somebody sent me a recording of the actual noise, and it's got like a separate frequency. A guy who's been into films type of thing. Is some sort of
have you seen
expert.
that, Mark and Neff?
No, I've not seen it.
So basically, what he's saying is what Dom's saying is that this guy, because I just watched it literally 2 minutes ago, so someone Instagrammed it to me. But he's a video editor, and he said when you do a video, I don't know if you guys see this. There's a video bar and then there's a sound bar,
Yes.
and he's saying when they downloaded this information from that film, there was about another 3 or 4 bars underneath it. One of them just doing a constant noise all the way through the film.
Wow, because you know, I know that if you've got a bounce down movie or film from anywhere and you put that back into Adobe Premiere Pro, what I use, you would only ever have one soundbar. You'd obviously have a left and a right channel,
Exactly, yeah.
which you would expect to mirror each other. So you were saying there's extra sound channels.
Yes.
Yeah,
throughout
there
the
was
whole movie.
three
Oh,
couple of
shit.
bars, and one of them. I mean, I don't know anything about this stuff, but we're just making a constant noise through it. I mean, that film it did have a
what could
very
be the
uneasy
point
feeling to
of
it.
that?
Well, it could either be a hidden Easter egg for people
Yeah.
like us.
Yeah.
You've got to take that into consideration.
Subliminal messaging.
It could be, if you believe that those things are not just for predictive programming, they're actually working in a metaphysical way, so that when the idea of that happening gets implanted into millions of people's heads, in a sort of like black magic sort of way, it actually makes it more likely for it to happen because maybe we are these projectors
Yeah,
of our
yeah,
reality.
sure.
You know.
Well,
This is
also, you think? I mean, that came out on Netflix. How many people watched that the day it came out? I mean, Netflix is now international, all over the world at the same time. Everyone watching.
But again,
that
Chris,
at
we're
the
coming
same-
back to the
same
frauds, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're coming back to Bernays. Netflix was
just-
started by Mark Bernays, Randolph. We're just coming back to that whole world of who makes this entertainment up.
You've just made more technology to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe
Amazing that
that's-
somebody
maybe that
always finds
frequency.
this stuff, though. You know, these hidden Easter eggs and these little clues, these predictive programming examples. Somebody always uncovers them. I mean, like that Supertramp Breakfast in America sleeve, the 9/11 sleeve. You know, it's a mirror image. It only makes sense when you look at it in a mirror. Who discovered that?
The whole of the Simpsons series.
But
Right.
there's always
Somebody
geeks,
always finds this.
but there's always geeks like us that are willing to waste hours and hours and hours and hours
Well, yeah.
researching.
That's because we
talking
have
about
nothing
it.
left in our lives but to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And also, we're looking for it out. We're perceptive to being lied to, I suppose.
Yes.
Seeing things differently to other people, I suppose. So
The
look out for
sickos
this
that
stuff.
plant this stuff into movies and stuff are probably watching to see which researcher is going to spot it the first and how long it's going to take.
Well, actually, on top of that, has anybody seen the movie Cell with John Cusack? Because that deals heavily
Yes,
with frequency.
I rewatched that recently. Actually, I rewatched it about a year ago because the first time I watched it, going back when it came out, I thought, "This is bloody creepy." This is. I mean, it's a low budget film and it's pretty crap, but the story is quite weird. And do you remember in the middle of the nonsense, people saying that animals were circling? They did that, didn't they? And they were circling around the cell towers. And basically, everyone went mental from the trigger of the mobile phones. So anyone who was on the mobile phone, it had Samuel L. Jackson in it as well, didn't it? Anyone who was on the mobile phone went crazy, didn't they? For some reason, his battery had gone dead.
Through. Yeah.
So he didn't. They never found out where the frequency. Oh, did they say it was a demon or something? I think it ended up being a demon.
I don't know, but if you look at the circling, if you look at Marx just said there about Mecca, but I was thinking, well, it's Saturnian, isn't it? With the rings around Saturn, and it was mimicking, but they're completely under some kind of mind control. They're not there anymore. And it was a creepy movie, but very, very accurate if you consider certain towers that have been installed lately.
And it did. By the end, they were all going around a massive tower, so it did look very Mecca-esque.
I wonder if that cube in Mecca, if you put like an EMF meter outside it, what kind of energies it's giving off to correct it, because it's exactly the same principle like we're talking about when and I don't think it was just in early 2020 that maybe that was the start of it when they first started seeing animals do this, and like you said, it's been referenced in movies. There's also another mountain I think in India, oh no, it's Tibet, that the ancient Tibetans would circle in a certain way, and they said that if they were to go anti-clockwise, which is the other way, it could have terrible health effects.
Is that similar to what they do with a glass? When they rub the finger around and give that frequency off, that type of, when they can rub the finger around top of a pint glass.
Well, there's a what is it story? Oh, Jesus walking around the thingy temple to make it crumble. Is that right? Or somebody did in a biblical story.
There's definitely some parallels to be drawn there, I think. Very interesting.
Mark, do you mind if I ask about PSYOP, what you guys think about PSYOP or possible PSYOP of recent days? Do you what do you guys think about the Tartaria stuff and like the mud flood?
Because that's been huge of 2023. That's been like the biggest thing that's been going throughout the truther community. There's just hundreds and hundreds of pages of people now with this whole new, it's sort of like a whole new genre of research going on about ancient Tartaria,
free energy buildings,
free energy in the 1800s. What do we think?
And the mud flood?
It's a big thing. I would say, along with the idea of a simulation theory, which has really gained prominence, we should get onto that and just see what people think of this idea of us living in some sort of simulated reality. I know people like Jason from Archaics have been on about this for some time, but similar to the soul trap idea, it's really gained a lot of popularity in our sort of circles. In terms of Tartaria and mud flood, I'm kind of open to it myself. I've not looked into it deeply,
because like the mud flood stuff, I mean, that would tie into a reset thing. What do you think about a reset, Mark? Have you heard of all this stuff? It's a cyclical thing, however many numbers of years. I mean, Jason Arquette, he's narrowed it down to a 138-year cycle. Then the whole world resets, or part of the world resets physically. And that's where allegedly all this mud has come from, which has buried all these structures and stuff like that.
When does he think the next one is?
I mean, Jason Arquette, he says it's May 2040 is the next one. Yeah.
I can hardly wait. Yeah, I've heard the suggestion, and I can't discount anything at this stage, really.
No.
The only thing that I would add to that is obviously with Tartaria, it does seem. I mean, it goes back to the Khanate, to the Mongols and things like that. And
that's right.
So this is written history. So I say written history. They could have edited it at any time, but it does seem to have been scrubbed from the history books. But we know that they were an actual empire. So for that part, I don't think there's anything conspiratorial. I think perhaps they've done this deliberately to.
I mean, I think the general consensus of the Tartaria research is that they had free energy buildings and technology, and that's the reason why that it's been cut out of history, because then they wouldn't be able to have oil-based energy and obviously charge everyone for it.
I think like the time of the robber barons that were controlling oil.
Yeah,
you know,
and
and
that's
then
the
for electricity.
That's the general consensus of the Tartarian stuff, and when you look at the architecture and stuff like that, it is mind blowing when you see some of these spires and I mean, me and my missus, we went to Prague in the summertime, and fucking the cathedral there is just absolutely immense, and I think it does look very similar to what we build now at power stations and power pylons and electricity pylons and stuff like that, and it does look somewhat similar.
I mean, if we view architecture going back like into the 70s and 60s, and then view it going back 200 or 300 years, it's nothing like that, is it?
No,
the stuff that they're throwing up now. I mean, they've just built some. We live out in the sticks, and they've just done some barns up, but they've had to build them like with corrugated metal zinc sheeting and stuff like that, and they're just shite. You know, why wouldn't they put nice stone built houses up that actually look like a house, not a KFC drive through?
Maybe they've learned the lesson, and next time they have a great reset mud flood or whatever, they want it all gone.
But then it ties into, then you've got like people like Mark Zuckerberg, who's recently been reported that he's building a bunker and stuff like that.
Well, there's this meme going around. I was having a good 2023 until I heard 12 billionaires are building underground bunkers. So people are saying 12 billionaires. I don't know how true that is.
But they're also building super yachts.
Yeah.
So the same ones that are building bunkers are building super yachts. So
yeah.
Well, whether it's a flood or a mud flood, you've got to account for either. If you think about it, you know, those not just the multi-billionaires and the trillionaires, some of the boats that they have, because I'm in the, as well as being an MC, I'm also in the marine industry. My family have a marina. We, you know, for normal people-sized boats, these people, their boats are bigger than frigates.
Well,
like Abramovich.
Yeah, Bitch boat. He's got a 100-meter yacht and a 70-meter bloody support vessel with it.
Yeah.
And so is cross-eyed Bezos.
Yeah.
Leeds Bradford
He's not cross-eyed, he's boz-eyed.
Yeah.
I mean, years ago when I was a chef, I used to work on super yachts, like right towards the end of my career. And like the biggest boat I ever worked on was a 62-meter, and I mean that was fucking big. So when these guys have got 100-meter, 150-meter plus, and like you said, support vessels, some have got multiple support vessels.
Yeah,
there's a ship, there's a Fed ship. It was a brand of super yacht.
Yeah.
It was in port when I was in New Zealand, and that thing had an onboard submarine.
Mental in it.
So think about that in reference to Noah's Ark, right?
Yeah.
You've got all these like elite people building literal arcs that, as long as you've got fuel, you can run and totally independently, you know, filtering your own water, flying your own helicopter.
Some of them got planes, haven't they? We've got planes.
Yeah. I mean, some of the boats I worked on had helipads.
Yeah. And you know, they're the ones telling us that, I mean, they're flying around the world. And I've got no problem with private jet. Just don't give me a load of bullshit that we can't fly around. Yeah, but the thing is, planes as well.
When you say that to people who actually support people like Health Chancellor Gates, they say that the money. They say two things. They say, for one, he can pay the taxes.
He can offset.
He can do that. Yeah, so that's fine. So that makes it okay. And then he is one of the ones that who needs to be able to fly around mobile around the planet. His big fancy jets.
Of course he does. Just
because
save them
doing
people.
Research into how to counteract what he.
Well, he needs to do that anyway, Andy, to save them poor people in Kenya.
Absolutely.
Or the Philippines.
It can solve global climate change with a leaf blower blowing his cash into air.
Yeah.
To block the sun.
Yeah, to block the sun. Yeah.
Is that any kind of a world that you'd actually want to live in, though? If there's some kind of catastrophe that's wiped out the bulk of humanity, who would even want to save themselves on a massive yacht or in an underground bunker or whatever? It's not any kind of existence worth living in, is it?
Allegedly, these super wealthy, quote unquote, elites, they shelter themselves, whether it's underground or on a boat or whatever, and then they've got resources and they come out and they're, you know, on top of everyone else, and then, you know, they're top of the pecking order again. For
they're like Tony Montana, aren't they? Fucking cockroach.
Don't forget this. All these weirdos, that billionaires. This is a transgenerational thing. So as long as their bloodline keeps,
so if you think about it,
in charge, that's all they really care about.
That was the literal plot line to do 2 James Bond movies. Sorry, The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. So the arch villains of those movies want to create, first of all, a new civilization under the water and destroy humanity, and then they come and seed a new race. And then in Moonraker, it's the same story, but just in outer space. So
space, yeah.
literally in James Bond movies, we're getting this fed to us back in the 70s.
Right, it's like literally one of the most popular subjects for, you know, thriller or sci-fi movies is, you know, these people surviving in a wasteland after an apocalypse. But think about it, on the Georgia Guidestones, that blew up this year, didn't it?
Funnily enough,
Yeah, yeah.
I think only one of the stones.
Oh, was it now?
I think-
Well, there's
I
none
think-
left. They pulled it.
Yeah,
Bin Laden Construction Company came straight in and took those
Yeah,
stones down.
yeah.
But
It was China.
What, the self-combusting stones?
yeah, if we take that as a baseline of understanding, so that said, Earth's population needs to go by 95%, leaving 500 million people. So right now there's 66 million people in the UK. With some simple maths, I can estimate that would leave about over 500,000 people living in the UK. If you got
Stanley Johnson said he'd like to get it down to 10 to 15 million people in the UK.
You first, Stanley.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so he was a little bit more conservative than the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah.
Let me show you your suicide
Okay.
proof, Stanley.
But what I'm trying to say is the point I'm trying to make is even if the Georgia Guidestones were fulfilled, and in the next however many years, 95% of the Earth's population was wiped out, and it wiped out.
It's going well.
in each country.
Yeah, it's going well.
There would still be plenty of people to rule over.
Yeah. Dropping like
still be
flies, I
plenty-
think's the term.
Yeah, there would still be plenty of peasants to do the bidding of a
But
very small
you
elite.
think again, right? Let's go with the narrative that is the Tartarian free energy stuff, right? And then there was a reset, and now after the post reset, which is what we're living now, is the age of oil. Okay, so maybe the next reset is gonna, when they emerge after that, they're gonna have some different form of energy,
The age of graphene.
or some other, the age of graphene, or that everyone's gonna have to pay the AI or something like that. Maybe that we're gonna then move to a different period until the next reset, and then something else is gonna
The age of
change it.
bitch tits.
Yeah, the age of bitch tits, yeah, or androgynous fucking half robot weirdos running around.
Trans-Schwabian world.
Imagine you have an out-of-body
rainbow.
experience then, Lance, and walking into some sort of transhuman.
I would cover my eyes. I'd be covering my eyes, even in my out-of-body
Yeah.
experience. I don't want to look.
Crossbred Ed Sheeran laying there with some bolt-ons.
Because you think as well, for these bloodlines that are in charge, quote unquote in charge, they let's look at the timeline of say 500 years. However many of their offspring are going to be procreated in that time. If they know that there's a reset coming, let's go with Jason Archaic's reset date of 2040. Then they know that the person who is alive and they're alive kin right now, they have to definitely stay alive during the reset so that they can carry on their bloodline for future generations to rule over there when there's not a reset.
It's much like in those early 1890s or 1850s onwards photographs, the very first photographs, and a little bit later, you always see these guys. There's all these like peasants with ill-fitting clothes in the front of the photos. But then in the background, there's always 2 or 3 guys,
well dressed,
very
well
well
dressed,
dressed, top hats, all with their left hand in their jacket,
yeah.
right? It's so fucking obvious. I've seen so many of these photos, and it's very clear to me that they were the
controllers,
like the
yeah,
overseers of the reset.
Yeah.
Those videos where you see all the people in the early 1900s go to the beach and they're all acting like absolute retards.
They've
Like,
got
there's
3-piece suits on
beach,
that don't fit them right.
no one is sitting on a towel. No,
No, they haven't got towels. No one's got a towel there. It's just weird.
If you've got a 3-piece suit, why wouldn't you own a towel?
Yeah.
Life's a
Exactly.
beach.
And they're
teats.
all and often in these videos and photographs, all these people are wearing pretty much identical clothing.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you've gone to a rack with a load of clothes that are all exactly the same,
and just picked out a different size.
And a lot of people got the wrong size. There's that,
I don't think even in Iraq that's wear them clothes.
yeah, you can pick up better clothes in like.
And then
a
you've got
third
then
world
and
flea
then
market.
they're not like with all that. Then you can speculate about these incubator babies that they had at these world's
Well, we
fairs
did a
and
show
stuff
on that,
like
Andy, a few years ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where
And then you think, well, maybe these are the peasants that were in these incubators who have never had a traditional family raising like you and me and all of us, and maybe that is
they got shipped
they
in
got
there on a
shipped out,
train.
shipped in on a train, and then
They'd never seen a beach before.
given some clothes to wear, never
Guess-
seen a beach before, and didn't know what the fuck.
Guess
to
whose
do.
grandma were involved in all the IVF stuff? Mr. Whitty's, I think. She was involved in a lot of the early IVF stuff.
Yeah, always runs-
Our
always runs
friend
in the
Mr.
family.
Whitty.
Yeah.
He's
You
got
think
a
of
nice
that pho-
light
that
energy
photo-
about him.
That
What?
photo just popped into my head. That Zeppelin refueling on the Empire State Building. Have you seen
Yeah.
that? What
Yeah,
the hell?
yeah, yeah.
Why
Yeah,
do we
I've
not
seen
know
it.
about this? What the hell is
Yeah,
that?
no,
It's right.
Huge airships.
absolutely massive,
I saw a
colossal
plan- I
airship.
saw a plan the other day for this Soviet Union airship. I don't know whether it actually ever got created or not. It was 1 kilometer long. It was 300 meters high, and it was actually made of very thin aluminium on the side. It was like a concertina. It could expand in size, and it was it was revolutionary because it didn't need to dump any hot air at high altitudes. It could totally self-regulate. It could carry 20,000 passengers.
That was
3,000
apparently
passengers.
that was apparently the future, but it didn't fit into the oil petroleum.
Or it went
Right,
too
that's
high, and
right.
they could actually see that there was a ceiling somewhere.
All that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too many people kept bumping
Yeah.
into the dome.
Can't
The
have
glass
that.
ceiling.
Yeah, well, 2023 was definitely a huge year for the flat Earth, wasn't it? And I,
And the firmament.
well, it's a huge year for globe denying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyone
yeah.
in 2023 that looked on a science astronomy page, which they also seem to pop up a lot in 2023. These new Facebook pages. I love astronomy. I love science. I love NASA. And you go through the comments, and every comment is just
Love.
CGI. Moon landing was fake. Eric Dubé, just after comment after comment after comment after comment, and so I saw a big shift in that in 2023.
I've seen a photo, right? I don't know if it's been photoshopped or genuine or whatever, but it's of the 3 alleged astronauts that went to the moon first on a little moon buggy thing with their helmets off.
Yeah, I saw it
Have
as
you
well.
seen that?
Now I'm going to say
Having
that
a fag break.
it looks very
Yeah.
it looks very convincing.
Doesn't
I
it?
tell you what, Lance, talking of yachts, right? I watched this guy who owns Fleming Yachts, which is like a old school, looks like an old school yacht type, but he does videos where he's going up Alaska and things like that. Anyway, he went through the Panama Canal and he were in Mexico. And just innocently said, and this mountain we're going towards now is where NASA sent the astronauts to train because the surface of it looks like the moon. And he flew a drone over it, and it just looked like the images. This was like from a couple of years ago, just doing an innocent video. So I looked it up, and it's actually an actual mountain that it looks like the surface of the moon, apparently the moon. But
Was it
that's
where was it? Because I've heard of.
I'm going to tell you now.
Is it in the US?
No, it's in Mexico.
Oh, I've heard it was is Utah near the Mexican border? No.
Possibly. But
No,
there might
New
be a couple of-
Mexico. I've heard it was a desert in New Mexico before.
There might be a couple of places, Lance. I don't know where I've put it. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. But yeah, I'll dig it out and email it you.
Yeah.
Nathan, you wanted to add something about cities?
Yeah, I think it was St. Petersburg. You're going back to the mud flood. Sorry, I'm taking it back a bit. There was pictures of the whole city taken without a population. I can't be sure whether it was actually St. Petersburg. I know it was somewhere in Russia.
Yes.
The whole thing was pictured, photographed with nobody there, and then suddenly
Literally
it
no
was
one.
repopulated.
Huge panoramic photos with
Yeah.
not a soul in them.
Like the San Francisco earthquake and stuff like that, isn't it? All them,
Yeah.
And then you've got Dresden, the Blitz, all this stuff wiping out
Yeah.
all the archaeology.
Well, we spoke about the Blitz,
Architecture.
Chris, the other day,
Yeah.
didn't we? Where
Yeah.
what was the Blitz where it was? I mean, Buckingham Palace apparently got slightly hit. What's Christian done? Smashed some
Like Chris's camera.
What happened? What's going on?
Give me a
dickhead.
He's been knocked off.
He's
5
the
to
most
go.
clumsiest.
Alcohol's got him.
Yeah,
God. Very dramatic. Sorry, guys.
yeah.
I'll put it on mute.
Anyway, the Blitz we were talking
Back
about.
to the Dark Ages.
We were talking about we were talking about C.S. Lewis, and a lady that went to she was taken out of her family. When they were at the evacuees from London, and do you know what the operation was called, Lance?
What?
Operation Pied Piper.
Oh, stop it.
To take the kids away from the parents and take them into the sticks to other families.
Oh, it's Russell Brand's nickname, and
Well,
also
exactly.
Pete Tong,
Operation
Pied Piper of Dance.
Yeah.
Did anyone know that Russell Brand appeared in the 2012 Olympic ceremony?
Dressed as the madman.
Yeah. Just as
Oh,
a mad
gotcha.
at, didn't it?
Was he acting like the Pied Piper?
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
mate.
I-
Yeah,
that's what
everyone
I
was
telling
following
you.
him round,
Yeah,
and then 4 women.
Don't you dare pick on
pointing at
Russell
him.
Brand.
Four women started pointing at him, and then I think in real clown world, 4 women have accused him of sexual assault or indecent behavior or rape or something like that.
But the
Do
reason I
you
brought it
think
up,
Russell Brand's going to go to
next-
jail?
Nobody
All
fuck.
part of the plan, Mark.
Do you think Tim Westwood's going to go to jail?
Ah,
No.
that's
same
been
reason-
kept quiet, isn't it, Mark? So I haven't
Yeah,
heard
well-
much about Tim Westwood for a long
Oh,
time.
well, there's investigations, Andy, don't you
Oh,
know?
of course,
So,
of course.
you know,
Yeah, yeah.
BBC, Met Police.
Are the
that's gonna
BBC
get them on.
investigating him? Yeah,
Yeah, they are.
the
yeah.
BBC investigating the room. Yeah.
Has
Yeah,
anyone
they'll
seen-
investigate.
It
Mariana
always goes
Springs on
well.
it. Yeah, Mariana Springs doing it. She's investigating.
Oh,
it.
well, we're in safe hands.
Yeah.
Did anybody watch the BBC Jimmy Savile thing this year?
What are you doing, Chris?
Steve Coogan.
The Reckoning. I still haven't watched it.
I've watched it.
The full deal.
The full deal.
Is it a series or a movie?
I think it's a 6-parter.
6-part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
This
is that on Netflix?
Chris
No,
is
it's
going to get a
it's
right
BBC,
bollocking.
mate.
That's BBC.
He's gone to get a candle.
Yeah. Chris is going to get a right bollocking. He's just knocked his wine over.
I mean,
Just while he's sorting his lamp out, you know, I'm really enjoying this whole downfall of the BBC through Doctor Who. I don't watch it, but I love the absolute destruction by them to their own property. It's
Yeah.
Doctor Who, the gay, transgendered,
gay,
lesbian, black. Yeah.
destroy itself.
Is that who Doctor Who is these days?
What is it?
Is it a rainbow
Is it
figure?
a them of color?
Yeah.
them of colour.
Yeah, them
with-
them of colour. Yeah.
He identifies as a lawnmower.
Yeah. Not a bad thing to identify, actually. Quite a handy utensil to have around the house or garden. And
Right. Well,
I mean,
Chris
lawnmower
sorts
around the
himself out.
house.
Well, that was stressful.
So very close to, or very connected to the whole soul trap idea, is this notion of a simulation theory that we live in some sort of bad copy, you know, some sort of bastardized version of original creational reality. That's one that's really gained a lot of popularity over the last year, I would say. And it's one that I've started to look at myself simply because it tends to answer a lot of questions about why this world seems to be so unjust and unfair, and why you can't seem to win and you can't seem to succeed in spite of your best efforts. And I just wonder what we all think about that, whether there's any...
What you said earlier about reality being a bespoke version. It's like almost a personal hell fitted to you, to your... Yeah. That's how it feels sometimes.
well, it's a trauma incubator, isn't it? This where we live in, for some reason, this is like a trauma incubator where we're here to sort of experience, no matter what you do, even if you're part of a winning team, let's say, or a winning thing, there's still trauma attached to it, because should you feel guilty for people you've beaten, or you know, everything you've got, if you're competing against 100 people, 99 of them lose. So
Yeah.
everything's set up to, all sport, everything's set up to lose, isn't it? Because there can only ever be one winner. Have you noticed? I don't watch darts, but apparently there's a young kid getting through to the final in darts.
You watch
something
3
like
dart
that.
finishes.
I watched 3 dart finishes quite a bit, yeah. And there's now a big push for this young kid to be shown on BBC and what have you. And so, again, he's now a success story. And then a few years' time, he'll be destroyed somewhere and something will happen to him, or be found in some strip bar or something like that. This is what happens, isn't it? So everything we do is just traumatized, isn't it?
I think first time I
Traumas
heard
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
first time I heard a simulation theory was Philip K. Dick in the 70s
Yeah, I was
or
about to bring
80s.
him up. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I'm sure you guys have played video games. I still do occasionally. Grow up, they're only 50-year-old.
Yep.
But as they've got better and better, you can't help but thinking, you know, since you played them as a kid, playing his ZX Spectrum or whatever, up to now. And then, I mean, I hadn't really played any VR or anything. I don't think I'd go that far. But I mean, some of it looks amazing, and the worlds that they build are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, is it far fetched to think in 20 years you could put a VR headset
It's
on
a
and
total
be here
recall
where we
thing,
are?
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a total recall thing.
I don't
Well,
think
look
it's
at
a far fetched theory, is it?
I was about to actually use the computer game analogy, and you explained it very well. They are getting so realistic now. We are going to reach a sort of pivotal nexus point in the next likely 5 years, where the graphics will be completely indistinguishable from real life. With what they're doing with Unreal Engine 5 at the moment is pretty
Yeah,
damn close.
I've seen some of that. Yeah.
Pretty damn close. They've worked out this way to slow down the frame rate, but keep No, I think they've slowed down the resolution but kept the frame rate very high, or the other way around. They've done sort of this like reverse engineering of pixelation to get this look now on these first-person shooters, which are about to come out in the next few months. Which
just
are
let me
essentially-
interject there. One of the guys that is part was founded. Can you remember that company, the CIA investment company, the venture capitalist company, InQtel? One of the guys was an inventor of a simulator, and he invested in Elon Musk's. One of Elon Musk's companies that are part of SpaceX. And he, anyway, I don't know if there's a link there, but it's just quite interesting. InQtel CIA.
I sent you a link, Lance, to. I don't think I sent you. I think we watched it in Thailand, maybe when we were on holiday in a bar. I've seen this video. My mate sent it to me. There's this dude who. What's the top VR headset?
At the moment, it would, I don't know, the most popular good one is it would be an Oculus Rift.
The dude who invented that has invented one that's actually kills you if you die in it.
It's got like spikes that will go directly into your
can you imagine if, like you just said a minute ago, that the graphics are indistinguishable from real life and you could actually physically die in real life?
No one's going to be playing the first-person shooter. You die every 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying,
you just wouldn't.
Can you imagine though? Can you imagine like when it gets to that level of fuckery, when there's going to be like the prize money for winning the league of that, where you actually die in real life, would be fucking astronomical.
Maybe that's what we all agreed upon.
This is going to be like the digital UFC of video gaming, like where people get, actually.
Somebody sent me an email the other day that the police are looking into someone sexually assaulting someone's on the
character.
I've got it right here. It's the first court case for the first rape in the metaverse, where someone's avatar. I haven't got it up on the
What
screen.
the fuck's that all about?
That basically, someone got teabagged in a chat room and they took it the wrong way. That's essential. For anyone who doesn't know what teabagging is, I'm not going to explain it.
So
it's normal in video games, isn't it? If you play a multiplayer, when you die, you squat up and down on their head.
Well, I think someone got gang teabagged in a game that wasn't an adversary game, so you weren't supposed to kill
each other.
It was just like a social thing where you stand there with your avatar and chat to other people. But instead of doing that, they decided to basically gang teabag someone. And the whole point of it is the first thing it says in the Daily Mail article is, although no physical actual attack took place in this immersive metaverse setting, blah 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 blah, the first thing that springs to mind, why don't you just take the headset off?
Yeah,
as soon as it started happening, just do that.
Yeah.
Well, you would say that they're setting down laws for the future, wouldn't you? Because I mean,
straight away, the first thing that came to my mind was, this is pro digital online ID propaganda.
Yeah,
because no one's going to go around virtually raping people in the fucking betaverse if you've got to sign in with a biometric ID. Yeah. So you don't need cameras to record what you're doing in the Gretaverse. The all-seeing eye is literally surrounding you. So no one's going to get away with anything once you've got those biometric IDs to log on to the Gretaverse.
Whilst we're talking about computer games and the metaverse and graphic stuff, why is it that we're in this day and age with computer? I don't play computer games, but why is it that the metaverse graphics are so shit?
I think it's deliberate. It's a deliberate ruse to make people go for the Cyberlink, right?
Neuralink.
The Neuralink, yeah.
From Robo Musk.
What you mean? Elon Musk isn't benevolent?
But why? That's what I just thought of, right? Think about it like
this. I thought he was my savior.
If this is some type of grand, divine simulation, right? And outside of this, we're eternal souls, and we're not really this body, and this really is, for us, a 70 or 80-year dream if we're lucky. And when we wake up to this and we're something much more, well, if that is really true, right? And this goes back to the soul farm thing. It goes back to, once again, Buddhism, the ancient Hindu beliefs, and certainly the Gnostics as well. And if that's true, that we've somehow been trapped in a bad copy when Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, defied Sophia the mother and created an ill-fitting copy of the real world, and the Archons trapped us all here. This is if you take the Gnostic take on this simulation and this soul trap thing. Well, if that's really true, and we're coming up to some sort of pivotal point where all will be revealed, the simulation will crumble, the dark program that we're in at the moment will cease to exist. Well, if you were the controllers and you knew that, and you knew this is the grand simulation, and you were about to lose control in 10 or 15 years,
you'd be quite desperate, wouldn't you, Lance?
Yeah, and the first thing, if it was me, I would create another new immersive place to take them and have more control before that happened. Yeah. And I don't think there's any coincidence whatsoever that we're here talking about this subject as the groundbreaking VR and AI and all these things are emerging. We've got people like Musk and Brian Cox and all these mainstream science gimps talking about this is we're living in a simulation. It's mathematically provable that someone in the future has created a sim, and they're saying all that to normies. This is no coincidence. It's no coincidence.
Gaia.
Yeah,
the whole Gaia channel.
Because
Brian Cox has got a graph.
I definitely got a graph.
I think there is there is definitely some divine truth to this. In my opinion, anyway. That's all I can obviously say. That the meat suit simulation is we've talked about this ourselves. We've used it as a way to explain this. Well, maybe
or you got the Rick and Morty analogy of the universe within a universe within it, because they're in a I don't know if you guys have seen Rick and Morty, but there's an episode on there where Rick's car is not working and he has to go shrink himself down to go into a battery, and then in the battery there's a whole civilization
doing the foot stomping thing to make the energy
work. And then one of the scientists amongst these people has broken out, and they're thinking that they know what's going on.
They can make their own energy.
They've built their own little box battery thing, and it's got a civilization within it, and it just goes on like that. So is that a possibility as well?
You've also got the
like you said that something like you just said, someone in the future may have created a simulation. That's what we're in now. Or maybe somebody else in the future of that person created a simulation which they're in, and then they've created a simulation here. Now, what the elitists might be doing is creating a sub simulation to go in here.
I actually think that's exactly. I'm not going to. I'm going to say it right now. I actually think that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
like fractals within fractals. So
for sure.
Yeah. Chaos theory, the man
layers upon layers upon layers.
As far as you zoom in on that little bastard Mandelbrot, it just
keeps going.
It keeps going. So I use that Rick and Morty battery episode analogy a lot, because for me it makes absolute sense that the parasite forces, it looks like they're trying to implant technology into us with some sort of like David Icke protein or some sort of like self-replicating Schwabian worm that what they've been pulling out of people. If that is all really
how are they going to do that?
Well, the thing is, though, an answer to that. but if they've done it once, they can do it again, right? So it's like a self-replicating program within a program almost. Has anybody? We're going back to computer games as an analogy here, right? So has anybody played the latest Assassin's Creed games, or is anybody familiar?
I still play them.
Right. So if you look at let's take Valhalla, right? I mean, the detail that's in that game, right? And then you look at the amount of world that's created. I mean, it's colossal. The size of it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And the detail that's in it is also phenomenal. We're talking 20 years ago. How much of graphics and computer processing power massively increased to take a 2D image on a screen that's pixelated and horrible to look at with a bit of crappy music, to take in something that potentially, if you integrated a headset into that game, you're going to lose yourself.
Yeah, I'm playing the Egyptian one at the minute, to be fair. And it's totally it's amazing, the graphics. And like you were saying, I mean, I work with a lot of youngsters in catering still, and the last 3 years has definitely had a massive effect on these poor folk, because. I was saying, because we had a lad at work, and I was just thinking about it. I'm thinking, he's like 18. So from 15 to 18, he was trapped at home. Well, for 2.5 years, he was trapped at home. And these guys play a lot of video games. And then, they're on they end up getting ADHD or pharmaceuticals and stuff like that. What if their life gets made so miserable that their actual answer is a VR or a Neuralink headset or whatever it is?
Absolutely.
And then that's where like Ready Player One, that's where they'll decide to go.
Yeah, Black Mirror, Ready Player One.
Easier,
Make the physical world so shit that people literally just want to escape into this like metaverse.
Make the physical simulation so shit.
I saw a little on social media. I saw a little reel the other day, and someone was talking about an experiment they did with fleas. So if you get a jar of fleas,
seen it,
you put the fleas in, put the lid on, they'll try to jump out.
Don't have that problem.
Keep hitting the top. After 3 days, you could take the lid off and they won't try to jump up at all. And their offspring that they had won't ever try to jump up at all, even if they're in a jar or not. So that is epi-eugenics.
Yep.
Where your experience
epigenetics is learnt in your life,
makes your offspring a certain way. So you think of all the trauma that's been ingested by everyone in, you know, from the Soviet Union, when they really hit it hard.
Genetic memory of the Soviet Union,
and then in your offspring, and then, you know, people who got pregnant and had babies recently and stuff like that. You think
apparently they found that out
trauma that's been set into their DNA right from the scratch, and then, like you were just talking about, if they make the world so shit that people are screaming out to go into a digital thing, you think if them people then have babies, what the fuck their lives are.
Well, they found that out, Andy, in the Dutch hunger march in World War II when women were pregnant, and they followed them after the war to find out what happened to the children.
Yeah.
And they worked out that the children were always obese. And what they learned was that before you've got a memory, you've got an emotional memory or an energetic memory, and that then translates into life after you're born. So they learn so much from that type of situation.
Because the women were so hungry all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it programmed the child.
Grew up hungry.
Yeah,
exactly. It programmed the child to hang on to fat.
That's not supposed to be real, is it? You're not supposed to be able to learn things and pass them on.
So this is like me and Lance. You know, when we started Rise Above, we've always said, like, you need to create a metaphysical fortress for your brain. Like, to not be subjected to this clown world thing, because it can do real damage for you and, look, you know, future generations to come. A lot of peasants, a lot of regular people, they don't know about stuff like this, and, like, you know, the passing down of DNA and you know what's happened to you in your life can seriously affect your
well I mean, it's
like that.
quite obvious, isn't it, Andy, that everybody that we research and you guys look into, Mark looks into, and Nathan and everybody else listening, there's a team of eugenicists behind it all.
Exactly. Yeah.
That doesn't happen by accident. That's not just there.
No.
You know, it's not an accident that Stanley Johnson's worked for John D. Rockefeller III on a eugenics program, or, you know, Chris Whitty's grandma were a IVF. You know,
no one's dad's a plumber.
No one's dad's a plumber.
So I was having this conversation with someone at work today that that these multi-billionaires and stuff, these you know, people that have got like hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars, whatever, they can afford to live a certain way. People have got millions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars, they can afford to live a certain way and have, you know, nicer shit and, you know, bigger, more better holidays.
Still peasants,
like yeah. And then you've got billionaires, they can live a certain way. Well, once you've got billionaires, then trillionaires, like, you think you've got all the money in the world, you've been to all the cool places you want to go to, you've fucked all the people you want to fuck, you know, you've got everything you what else can you do then to satisfy yourself? You end up playing God.
I actually think it's deeper than that, Andy. I think we think it comes down to the financial side of it. I think, like George Carlin said,
I'm talking about, I know you are, because
yeah.
Once they've got nothing else to satisfy themselves, then that's when you want to start playing God. And you know, you see yourself as someone separate to the peasantry.
Remember that guy?
I don't know. I'm not.
I get the idea. For me, I would see in that level of things, it's actually more like a family business and an obligation.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you don't take up the family business of being a peasant farmer, like this metaphysical ecosystem where you just have to extract as much out of these douchebag meat suits that are like on this cycle where they keep getting resetted and their memories wiped, and we burn their libraries and then we do it again. You know, yeah.
Can you remember the guy that set one of the guys that set PayPal up? The guy that who was portrayed in the film about Facebook called Peter Thiel. Remember us talking about him? Yeah. And he runs
Paladin.
But he runs that Palantine. Something like anyway.
Palantir.
And they're taking over the data and things for the NHS, and they work for part of the CIA. Well, even someone like him, who was a Bilderberger, etc. Can you remember us saying that he were doing like blood transfusions? He were experimenting with blood transfusions from young people into older people. They were doing it via mice. So even they're all going back to what Andy was saying there. What else is the next? They're all investing in this.
He's a farmer too. He's just a data farmer.
And now they want to start. You know, they're messing with the cattle with digital implants, and, you know, trying to. And I remember,
just look at what the beef industry's doing.
I remember, ages and ages ago, I think this was like in 2013 or 2014. I saw this video online, and it was this guy. I can't remember his name. It was just a short clip, and it was in black and white. It was a really old video of this guy, and he spoke incredibly posh. He was an English guy, and he said that he thought it was a privilege, and we should all think it's a privilege to be stepping stones to something greater.
Arthur C. Clarke.
Arthur C. Clarke. That's
yeah,
it.
it says Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah. And he said that our generation at the minute for the next like 100 years to 200 years, we're the stepping stone
To break out of the cocoon.
To break out of the cocoon of your meat suit, and then it's
to the
going to be
graphene world.
Yeah,
The graphinated Schwab bot.
I got called the cocoon at school by a guy who stuttered.
So you think that's they're trying to actually implement that. It's happening now, especially with like people like Elon Musk and his Neuralink and stuff like that. And I'm not saying it won't be good stuff for like paraplegics, people with ailments where they can't use their body and stuff like that. If you've got Neuralink,
a lot of
maybe
people
but the
have
problem
been made
is
to be like this, haven't they? Like ADHD and autistic people and things like that. And they will be the ones that'll be at the forefront of that experiment.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like there was that article the other day where I think it was 2025, all new cars that are produced have to have a kill switch. So
I like those words.
Your
Them
Neuralink's
words are
not
nice.
going to have a kill switch. Like
2033, all Neuralink will have to have a kill switch.
Like Aurak off Blake 7, where they just pull that box out of it. He's going.
So if Mark says something they don't like on his Good Vibrations podcast, they just flip the switch, and there's your Neuralink turned off. You're disabled for 33 days until your review is ending, and then you'll see if you're going to get a switch back on.
You can't go to Blockbusters. You can't go.
No. Well, there won't be any travelling to Blockbusters or anything anyway.
Blockbusters was 10 years ago.
It'll all be droned in on the what's that city? The line that they're building in.
In Neom.
There's no cars, no travel. It'll be everything on drones.
Sainsbury's Hannibal Nectar card will be stopped and. Yeah.
Hannibal Nectar.
Oh, there's a new one.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I've asked numerous youngsters over the last couple, about probably 4 years.
Where you say that, Chris, it just doesn't sound right.
Because I work with loads of youngsters in catering, don't I? But I reckon 90% of them have said when I've mentioned the Neuralink and they don't know what it is, and then I explain it to them, and I say, "Would you have it?" 90% of them say yes.
My mate, who's a photographer, I've said this to you before. He can't wait for it to come out because he wants to have a photographic eye, so that when he sees something, he doesn't have to whip his camera out. He could just literally blink and it takes a picture straight away. That's what he wants. That like he's gagging for.
I'll tell you what I saw this week. The first ever, this new pair of smart glasses. I can't remember what they were called, but they had
Schwab glasses
built into them. So you've seen the Google glasses before, the Facebook Ray-Bans. We could push the button, upload a picture straight away. No one bought them. They didn't take off. They're absolute failures. There's videos of people getting beaten up in bars in America for wearing Google glasses because other people was like, you're invading my privacy. It started bar fights and stuff. Well, anyway, these new ones coming out, they have ChatGPT built into them. I watched the advert. It didn't really properly explain what that's going to do. So you can imagine you've got your sunglasses and it's got like some sort of like heads-up display overlay as you're walking down a high street. But
that's been shown in loads of movies, hasn't it? Where you
won't be able to get one though, Chris.
You've got like a holographic screen in front of you with like.
I'm thinking, what are you going to use ChatGPT for when you're walking around? But
well, also you've got
not to walk down the high street, is it? The plan is to stay at home anyway.
So the plan is to have a holographic street to walk down. Come on, lads.
Imagine
a holographic street to walk down, and you maybe got some kind of moving floor like Jamiroquai.
I think
in your pod. Your eight man
directly into a Jamiroquai video.
Your eight man bug pod.
Have you seen Jamiroquai now?
In a Black Mirror,
little munchkin trying to dance. Have seen it?
I always thought he was a good dancer back in the day.
Yeah, I thought I liked him. I used to like his music.
Yeah, but he's my age now. He's 54. You can't dance at 54. He's just like a fat sack of shit bouncing around.
Does he still wear that hat, do you think, at 54?
It is, yeah. It's just a fat guy in one of them in that weird hat.
Oh, is it?
January the 6th guy wore a hat like him, didn't he?
Oh, he did, yeah.
Mark, you should know. He's not still making music, is he?
Yeah, I believe he is. Yeah, they never retire, do they?
No.
Yeah, because now they're off the payroll and the proper contract has expired. This is when they actually have to work to get money, and actually, they're fuck. I really must stay gigging to survive.
Oh, well, Sting was in Halifax. Can you believe that in the summer?
You think as
Sting.
well, like all this.
fucks.
Do you remember a few
He's come
weeks or
down in
months
the
ago?
world.
There was all that chat in the media about the Hollywood actors kicking off because they've been asked by their studio or whoever controls them to come in, and we need to take your AI
They've all been
shots.
outgored. They've already
outgored.
It's already been done.
So you think as well they've got their all the music artists as well. They won't need to make. Al Gore can just make the music, and they've got their holographic. I mean,
it's already happened.
Wasn't there a concert of Tupac, like holographic Tupac?
Yeah.
Yeah,
was
there
that
was,
a thing? Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Ed,
years
Ed,
ago.
Sheer-
That
Ed
was
Sheeran was
2014,
boasting
I
about.
think.
Yeah.
I think Ed Sheeran boasted about either making a tune or writing the lyrics using AI. I mean, myself as a musician, if I was a producer and I was making a tune, the only thing that stuff like that should be used for is long, arduous processes in editing. That it could just save you time. If you're using it to actually create the music, then
That's not you
that
creating
actually
it.
defeats the entire purpose of creating music. From my point as an artist,
Hasn't Tom Wanks has signed his sort of whatever it is?
He signed his Al Gore agreement.
Yeah, Al Gore agreement.
Oh, what a surprise! The guy that switches on the fucking Hadron Collider in 2012 is the first one to sign his Al Gore agreement. He's always the first. You know that? Large Hadron Collider was first turned on, and there was big problems with it. I think it was maybe 2006, 2008.
And he started off the old 2020 nonsense, didn't he? Tom Wanks.
Yeah, it was literally starring Tom Hanks. Like
went on holiday with his Corona typewriter in his suitcase, like you do.
Yeah, like you do.
Yeah, and he was filmed in that like weird underground sort of like storeroom. It's like really strange.
The Mouthy Buddha, internet researcher, he did a fantastic episode on Tom Hanks and some real shady shit that he was photographing on his Instagram. And when you like typed in this code to a computer, it would take you to like, you know, pedophile sites and like some really dark shit.
It was
according to Charlie Freak, he's a goodly, godly man these days.
Yeah,
he's
of course.
flipped.
Yeah. And didn't him and his wife get citizenship in, is it Greece?
Yeah.
Where if you're a paedophile, you're not in trouble or something like that.
The craziest thing I heard about Tom Hanks is this is mental, is that he was the head of an Italian family that were actually an ancient line of assassins that used handkerchiefs to assassinate people. Do you remember?
His Instagram was full of handkerchiefs.
Yeah. He was photographing
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, that's right. He was photographing.
Hanks was his nickname as the head of this family.
Handkerchief.
Oh, Hanks, handkerchief.
Well, I'm convinced.
Exactly.
Yeah, I am as well. Yeah.
Tom Hanks has died more times than Osama bin Laden, according
Better
to
than Peaky Blinders. That.
It's been
he's in Guantanamo Bay, Mark, and the Tom Hanks you see is a clone.
Oh, trust the plan.
It's the fifth one now, isn't it?
Hanks 5.0, I think. Now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another
He
one
must
with
be
a
getting
royal,
on. How
royal
old's Tom Hanks
bloodline.
now?
Another one with a royal bloodline mark.
Must be almost 60.
All of
Mr.
these
Wanks.
people, like who have been prominent for the Soviet Union, are getting a bit, old now, past the best. Not so much actors.
Idris Elba was another one, wasn't he? Early on, claiming he got it. He's
Yeah.
a system asset to his core.
Yeah, you were the first one to say it, wasn't it?
Never liked him.
No.
It was almost like a competition at one point of like which celebrity could boast they were having it worse or complaining about lockdown the most. I suppose like all of us that were trying to create something, once their contract of actually being on the big screen was suspended, and they were on their like subsistence pay, they had to like rely on social media, just like other people did. Who was a good example?
I remember seeing a video of Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton sitting in the background, right, at their house in Arkansas. And Bill Clinton looked fucking furious that he was stuck at home with his wife. He looked so pissed off. And shit.
Well,
And
you
this
would.
was like some video they were saying, like, get your vaccine, like, you're selfish if you don't, that kind of thing.
I mean, obviously, people like that were still flying around doing whatever they
Yeah,
want. He was
they were.
probably pissed off just to be in the same room with them
Yeah,
for 10,
absolutely.
15 minutes for the filming.
It was just so funny that, like, the look on his face. Was just
Derek
utter-
Draper's got them all beat, though. Poor old Derek. I mean, will that man's suffering never end?
Is that the dude with the wife that was on GMTV?
Yeah, he's the guy that got COVID worse than anyone else in the world.
The longest.
And his wife
COVID.
just happened to be a prominent television presenter. So there's a stroke of luck, eh?
Yeah.
It probably was a stroke. Excuse the pun, but
Well, it probably was,
unless he's
yeah.
totally faking it, he looks like he's had some sort of like major medical incident, like a heart attack or a stroke.
Well,
And they've just blamed it on like the longest COVID ever.
Well, I mean, you stick him in a wheelchair, put a blanket on his lap, and wheel him around the garden, and he can have anyone fooled. Did he used to be a plumber, Dom?
No, he didn't. He used to work. He was director at Tavistock Hospital.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
easily
yeah.
confused.
Oh,
Yeah,
this-
psychologist. Yeah, yeah.
This reminds me of Coviet celebrity scams. Right, this year it actually properly came to light. Do you remember Captain Tom?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Chris used to call it.
Dude
Chris used to call him
walking
Uncle
out
Tom. Yeah.
Captain Tom 33 all over the place on this story. From day one, we called it. We're like, this is just too much.
Bullshit,
You know, the dude's a Freemason. He's marching up and down his garden. He's raising. I think they did raise some like a cult number. Anyway, it came out in recent months, or maybe it was earlier this year, last year. Sorry, 2023. That basically his family set up like shell companies, like multiple trust, sort of like NGOs, and there were a number of
charities.
Charity. I think there was like one
Didn't they build
registered
an
charity.
Olympic swimming pool or something in the backyard?
Yeah,
They built a swimming pool, didn't they, in the
really
backyard?
cashed it. And I think that, you know, they were actually arguing about 800,000, so almost £1 million out of this 33 million pounds that they raised or something through this old Freemason walking up and down his garden. But you know, it's just another
Did he get
one.
knighted?
He did get knighted.
Yeah, he got knighted.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing, there was a picture of him in the Bahamas. Well, everyone was not allowed to go out and go on holiday. He's in the Bahamas with Russ Abbott. And who was the other famous dodgy person in the photo? It was so weird. It was so weird.
I miss Ross Abbott.
Yeah.
Is Abbott still alive?
It must be.
He loves a happy atmosphere.
That's just another form of like the clapping for the NHS when the Captain Tom thing was just like some other.
Who donated money to
As
Captain
it-
Tom?
yeah.
Do you know?
We went through that trouble of, yes, I'm going to send him a tenner.
An NPC.
Why? You didn't
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
insane.
NPC.
Every little helps, every fiver and every tenner that was sent by a non-sentient meat sack to Captain Tom has literally just gone straight into the coffers of his kids who have built, you know, spas, swimming pools. They've got other like offshore shell companies, holding companies. It was so obvious when it happened, but you know, because of the short like goldfish nature of a non-sentient meat sack, they don't really. They might go, oh, that was terrible, but they don't think back to when, you know, it was obvious at the time, and many people that you know that they consider tinfoilers or whatever were, you know, shouting from the rooftops, "Oh my God, I can't believe you lot are falling for this obvious bullshit." But they don't make the connection is still not made.
Something else pops up, doesn't it? Russell
Yeah,
Brand.
there's enough.
I should have wheeled out Geldof for it. Give us your fucking money.
Yeah.
First time I ever heard anyone say F word on TV. That thing.
Do you mean Geldof, who runs that venture capital company in Africa?
Yeah, him.
Yeah, him. Yeah,
Don't worry, he's
yeah.
just a scruffy old singer from an Irish new
Yeah,
wave
yeah.
band, you know, regular guy.
Just a regular lad. Yeah,
Yeah, like all the others.
yeah.
Guys, one thing I did want to discuss in this show, mainly because nobody else is, as far as I can see, is the resurgence of the smiley yellow face. So, Dom and Chris, you've discussed this in some of your shows, and I've got into it as well. But over the past 12 months, we've seen this motif, this icon of the acid house rave scene, which we remember from the late 80s, the smiley yellow face. It's come back, but in a very disturbing way. So for some reason, it's started to be everywhere again. Paul van Dyk, this German DJ producer who I've been looking at for quite some time, put out a tune called Acid Tracks, which is a remake of an old acid house tune with DJ Pierre. And the iconography for it in the video and such is this smiley yellow face, except it's got two slits in place of the eyes, which are very similar to the logo for the Schutzstaffel, the SS, Nazi Germany. So that's a bit disturbing. And also there was the business with Matthew Perry from Friends, who turned up dead, death by jacuzzi. And shortly before that, he pictured himself with this yellow cushion with the smiley face on. There's also the work of William Ramsey, the investigative journalist who I'll be interviewing in a few weeks about this. He's got a new book coming out concerning what's become known as the smiley face killings, which is a number of murders which have been taking place for a number of years, where young men go missing, turn up dead in water, and there's a smiley face daubed in graffiti in the proximity. And it seems to tie into this disturbing dark side of the smileys. So for some reason, this smiley yellow face has come back, and it means something, but I don't know yet what. But I did want to discuss it. So has anyone got anything to...
Should we be concerned that the stand in the park icon and, you know, was a smiley yellow face? I mean, that's
Was it?
Just said there.
Well, we have to hope that's an innocent
Is that
coincidence.
smiley yellow face mark that you're talking about where the killings have been taking place again with the SS as the eyes, or is that with the classic
No, it's with the dots for the eyes.
circular?
But for some reason, this Paul Van Dyke video has the slits looking like the SS logo. And Nirvana back in the day, when you think about the logo that band used, it was very similar. It had the slits that were
Sure.
like
Well, the cross eyes, they were dead eyes, weren't they?
Yeah,
Dead eyes.
The Nirvana
And-
one with
and-
a bullet hole in its
It
head.
had a dint in one side
Yeah.
of his head, and the tongue hanging out like it was a dead cartoon. You know, the
I
cross-
think firstly we've got to understand that the actual smiley face business is just short of $1 billion. I think it's about between $500 and $1 billion a year industry. Actually being able to, from a royalty position, whether they're on kids' pajamas or not. Going back to the stand in the park, I'm sure it's quite innocent. I mean, I know
Well,
quite a few
someone's
people
got the
that go to these.
trademark on the smiley face symbol.
Yeah, the guy that drew it, right? The guy that drew it in 1963, he drew it and didn't copyright it. He got paid something, whatever. He was a designer who got paid just to draw that picture for an insurance company. And I did some digging on the insurance company, which I haven't got my notes now, so I can't really go into that. But he didn't copyright it, and a few years later, a French guy did in the early 70s, who worked for quite a big publishing company. So he that is now copyrighted to this
So how
massive
did-
French company.
How did that end up,
That's
Dom? If it's copyrighted by a publishing company,
Yeah.
How did that end up in the acid house and
well, it's a good
like,
point. That.
dance
Yeah,
industry?
I know.
Mark?
Whole 90s rave
Yeah,
scene
yeah,
was
all
with-
of it.
That was the
Like, I mean, it
symbol.
was on fucking ecstasy pills
Exactly,
and
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
It was
It makes you
literally
wonder.
everywhere.
Makes you wonder, Andy, whether it were put out there as a control experiment.
Maybe it's a sigil. Maybe it's a sigil. One thing that instantly springs to mind for me, and this is something we have discussed on the show multiple times, recently with a caller when we did customer services, when people call in, was the thing that there seems to be a correlation with people who went out to raves, listened to rave-esque music, potentially took ecstasy throughout the late 80s, throughout the whole 90s, and even the early 2000s. They may have potentially been exposed to subliminal messages and also non-subliminal messages through lyrics and through movie samples, forewarning
tape
exactly the kind of stuff that was going on now. Someone sent me an email a little while ago giving some really good examples of this. And, you know, and they were talking about killer injections and, you know, obviously the whole anti-establishment theme that was throughout the sort of rave scene. You know, I entered it quite late in 1999. And I got to go to a couple of pretty seminal raves, like at the Drome in London and stuff. And, you know, it was, that was a massive culture shock for me. You know, hearing that type of music, those frequencies, and obviously seeing that symbol everywhere and the people that were there. And with some of the work that Mark's done recently, with one of his latest things about exposing that and the potential infiltration and this and what it was all about.
The infiltration of the rave scene presentation.
Well, just like you know, acid when that came out in the 60s has got the whole backstory to that as well. That the summer of love that started in 1988 with basically the explosion of ecstasy or MDMA.
It was a reboot
CIA...
of what happened in the 60s, just with ecstasy instead of LSD, but all the other elements were there.
We talked about it very early on in the show. I was asked by Lee in the Guardians. He said, you know, the Prodigy, right? That guy, Keith, was he like a shaman? And I said, when I was learning about, I did a dissertation in uni when I was 18 about British music culture and the diasporic spread of UK hip hop and how it ended up being rave music here. And it makes perfect sense to me that there was something in those tunes that was maybe programming a sect of us to be absolutely opposed to what's going on now. Now, people would instantly say, why the hell would the controllers do that? Why would
how many ravers stepped up over the course of the last 3 or 4 years to oppose the nonsense?
Very few, Mark.
Yeah.
Very few.
How many punk rockers, how many so-called anarchists,
Rebels,
anti-establishment ravers, very few.
But the same thing
but you've got to
happened-
remember the ones that we know of may still have royalties to collect. They may, you know, potentially.
Or maybe it wasn't
financial and emotional.
Maybe it wasn't for the artists that were putting out this music standard. Maybe it was for the listeners to program them to be anti-establishment.
Well, one thing I thought was that, I mean, there were smiley face, ecstasy tablets and everything. But anyway, one thing I thought was that one thing the club scene did was if somebody took a drug and they had a great night, for argument's sake, that actually turned them on to pharmaceuticals. Because if you think about it, taking a pill actually means that drugs work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
good point.
similar to bodybuilders with steroids, isn't
That's
it?
a very good point.
Similar to
That's a very
bodybuilders with
good point.
steroids. A lot of them
Look-
I know that they're all arm speared.
I'm not going to lie. The first time I went to a big rave in London was also the first time I tried ecstasy, and I'd never really even smoked pot on an actually level to affect me before. Maybe when I was drunk at a party when I was 17 a couple of times. Never really smoked weed. First time I did ecstasy at this rave. The first time I've been to a rave in London with 4,000 people there, with that going on, that was undoubtedly a complete
And when you think
life-changing
back,
experience. A
ecstasy-
life-changing experience.
ecstasy was made by Merck. That George Merck, he was the guy that came up with MDMA.
Can I just ask at this point? So, for those who've taken it, how did you feel on it? Because it's supposed to make you feel love and compassion and connectedness.
Yes,
I'm not saying I've
absolutely.
taken it recently, but if I had, what I'm saying is I felt nothing, just nothing at all. Nick.
Mate, I've felt so
had.
unbelievably connected to
yeah.
people when I've taken ecstasy.
MDMA in its purest form isn't just a stimulant. It's actually a semi-entheogen. So it actually borders the line with things like mushrooms, ayahuasca, mescaline.
It can be a very psychedelic experience.
It can be a
Yes.
super psychedelic experience. In my opinion, having a proper hit of MDMA is or ecstasy. The name is in the title. Is that's the clue? Yeah, it's literally like having an
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 out of body
all-body
experience.
an out of body experience. The body is feeling an orgasmic state
Yeah,
from head to toe.
it is.
And there's no
Everyone
doubt that
is
it
your
was
best
connected.
mate.
There's no doubt it
Yeah.
was connected to the music frequencies. There is no doubt
Absolutely.
about that. 100%.
So then do we think that an emblem that might be on one of the tablets could have a bearing on the experience that you have when you were on it, given the energetic frequency that
I
emblem
don't
might
know.
represent?
I don't know what the first. I know. I can't remember who just said invented MDMA, but the actual first ecstasy tablet, I'm sure, wasn't for the rave scene, and it was probably some experimental Nazi lab and given to peasants, whatever. But the MDMA tablets which were designed for the rave scene,
They weren't just MDMA.
No.
That's
So
the big point.
the ecstasy tablets which contained partly MDMA
Yeah.
for the rave scene. I wonder what the first symbol was, because I know
Well, we're led to
symbols on
believe it was
them-
either a smiley face or a white dove or a love heart. That's
Yeah,
as
that's
far
it.
back
That's
as
the
it pretty
three.
much goes.
That's the three.
In my type, but just before I
And the
started,
Mitsubishi.
the Mitsubishi was an absolute.
That was quite a way after
Yeah.
that.
that was like second wave. When I
I think
came
the
out,
Dove was the first one for
you
the,
have
the
Rolexes,
recent
Supermen.
ecstasy tablets.
So it was it was actually a load of occult symbols on there, because you'd have the
The
symbols
dove.
of these. Yeah,
But
you'd have the symbols.
let's put this in place though, right? George Merck he's a German guy. Obviously, Merck, the massive pharmaceutical company, that's the family.
Yeah.
He worked for US. He worked for the department with Sidney Gottlieb. So Sidney Gottlieb run MK Ultra.
Makes perfect sense.
And during World War II, George Merck worked. He ran that department, I think, or ran the development of the use of pharmaceuticals within, I suppose, mind control. And he worked in the department. Do you know that guy that jumped out the window when they dosed him with LSD, and he was part of that MK Ultra thing? I forget what he was called now. Do you remember? Frank Olson. They worked for the War Research Service, some ridiculous name like that. It was during World War II, and so the guy that invented MDMA in 1912 worked for US intelligence in World War II, using
I do believe
MDMA.
the first official use of MDMA was actually in World War I.
Right.
And the idea was that if you had a flesh wound, that you may be able to carry on fighting. Not like if you'd lost your leg or you lost your arm. If you had a big gaping flesh wound, you'd get a massive dose of MDMA, because it would actually make the wound regenerate much faster.
Right.
And they found that by accident. Alleged. This is the official story, by the way. They found it by accident that it had these hugely powerful entheogenic and potentially out of body you know, when you're really tripping MDMA and you're sat down and your eyes are in the back of your head because you can't even, your eyeballs are vibrating and you're having an out of body experience.
Yeah.
That was found out by accident by the soldiers who had
when
these
they took a little bit too much.
Well, no, because they would give them loads, because what it does, I've had it when I've gone out to a rave back in the day, you know, 15, 20 years ago. You go out and you come back and your fingernails and your toenails
Like
have
that.
grown half an inch.
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. Yeah.
Once we went to the full moon party when I was emceeing on New Year's Eve, 50,000 people there, and my brother had Crocs on, right? And because, you know, in Thailand you don't really want to wear flip flops, in my opinion, because there's things that can bite you. There's lots of broken glass and shit. Shit kicks off. You don't want flip flops on. Anyway, the next morning, some of his toenails had actually fallen off because he'd been dancing all night, and his toenails had grown so much in his Crocs. He hadn't even noticed that it's like his big toenail had dislodged itself and come off because it'd grown so long into the end of his shoe, and he wasn't feeling any pain.
I know we're talking about something slightly different there, but it's interesting stuff when you go back into the history of this stuff and how it's been utilised. I mean, it's like super glue. They used super glue to stitch up wounds, didn't they, in Vietnam?
Most of these substances were discovered like through the military-industrial complex, or the intelligence network. Absolutely.
Yeah, just when you were saying there about soldiers using it to carry on, well, and in line with the military-industrial complex as well. If you look at the Vikings, they used to have berserkers, which apparently would take the Amanita muscaria mushroom because that was highly toxic. But if you did a certain, like they called it the berserker dance, which apparently would help you to metabolize it properly. And then you'd obviously send these guys into war, not giving a damn, expecting to fully be hacked up and not make the battle, but kill as many as they can on the way out. So I'm wondering if it has a similar type of effect or purpose as the ecstasy.
I think the Romans took some as well, didn't they? Stabilium or something like that.
Reminds me of
ecstasy would
Jacob's
be rubbish
Ladder. Have you seen
for
Jacob's
soldiers
Ladder?
that were fighting.
Film Jacob's Ladder, and it's about the Vietnamese in Vietnam. Have you seen that film, anyone? Jacob's Ladder?
I've heard of it. I'm not sure I've seen
Good
it.
film. It's scary as hell.
MK Ultra, isn't it?
Yeah, and they basically drug them off the tits in Vietnam, don't they? On LSD, basically, to fight better. And they all end up going mad and killing each other.
Yeah, well, it's all been tested. It's now widely accepted that the kamikaze pilots, the Japanese kamikaze pilots that were flying directly into the American frigates in World War II, were all absolutely
off the napper.
Of
Good for them.
methamphetamine.
Like, that's the best news I've heard from them, actually. Bloody hell. Horrible. Just to say, we've got to mention, I suppose, Mark, with that question about the smiley face, Alan Moore, because he was the one who brought it back to the forefront,
right?
In the late 80s, yeah. I mean, and that comic book graphic novel was everywhere, with literally a big smiley face on the front with a blood splat over the front of it.
Yeah, but
that was used on
back.
Bomb the Bass Beat Dis, which was early '88. They had that hit, and I think that was shortly before, or it might have been around the same time as Danny Rampling started using it for Shum.
I think Alan Moore was about, I think Watchmen was about 86, 87.
Yeah, that was 86, but then Bomb the Bass used it early 88, and I think Danny Rampling used it around about the same time. And they used the blood splatter, or Bomb the Bass used the blood splatter as well from the Watchmen.
Right.
And Alan Moore was an occultist, as we discussed before.
Crowley,
he was into chaos magic and Crowley and all this. So
yeah,
there's a dark side to the Smileys for sure.
And we linked it back to that Frank Olson thing, didn't we?
Yeah, because the first scene in Watchmen, when it pans back from the blood splat on the smiley face, is of the comedian getting thrown out of a window, like Frank Olson did, apparently. And then he lands in the street, and then you see the smiley face in the drain with the blood running down it. And that's what the cover of the Watchmen came from. So is it a coincidence? I don't know. It seems a bit
David
weird.
Bowie, in his final video, I think it was for Lazarus, the song Lazarus, he's got a smiley yellow badge on his outfit just before he passed away.
And that album came out after he died, did it? Did it come out after he died?
Right about the same time, yeah.
One was called Black Moon, as Black Sun, I think, one of the songs on it as well, wasn't it?
And he had the lightning
Star.
bolts. He had the lightning bolts over his eyes, like the DJ Pierre Smiler.
The SS logo, yeah.
Yeah.
So one final subject for discussion then before we wrap up is whether we feel that in any way the wheels are starting to fall off the narrative, the control systems narrative. I'm seeing things recently like all these revelations about P. Diddy. So I've had my eye on this, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever the hell he's calling himself this week. So there's all these accusations from various women about sexual impropriety. And he's been connected into Epstein, according to many of these allegations. And many other names from the hip hop world and the music world are getting thrown into that whole mix. And I wonder if this is controlled. Many people would claim that it's being deliberately put out there for whatever reason. But I wonder if it could be evidence of things not entirely going the control system's way. And maybe things are starting to fall apart. So depends how cynical we're all feeling, I guess. But any thoughts on all that?
I personally think, Mark, that everything's going exactly according to plan for the dark occultists.
Okay, you're in cynical mode then.
I mean, I personally think, I think that they've got the majority of the population hook, line, and sinker, whether it's the truth of scene or whoever. I think it does, and I think the people who actually have, I don't think anyone has a grasp of what's actually going on fully. Everyone knows a little bit, or some people might know more than others, but no one's got a grasp of what's actually going on because it's deliberate chaos.
We know we're being bullshitted to.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone knows that. Yeah. But I think the whole thing for what I think it's going to plan for them. The people who
do you think we can give them
strings
too much credit though? This
I
idea
think, don't
that
get me
they're
wrong,
all powerful,
I think
they're all knowing, they're absolutely
no, not at all.
top of their game.
Don't get me wrong. Sorry, I don't think that they haven't made mistakes at all over the years and stuff like that, especially since 2020. But I think as a majority, they've got everyone right where they want them.
So when you hear about stuff like allegations against P. Diddy, for instance, and connections into Epstein and all this, you think that's all planned and all?
Well, I think that's partly disclosure, and I think it's again. We were talking about this.
I would frame it more like there's a middle management change coming up.
Yeah.
The whatever overseeing force is controlling this realm, that's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. This is my opinion. But what we're seeing is with these institutions, the Rothschilds are selling all their assets in the last couple of weeks. These
the Rockefellers have been doing it. They've been selling their art as well, haven't they?
Yeah. These celebrities that are increasingly being put in the spotlight for their wicked deeds. The banks that are slowly crumbling. This is a middle management change, and I think from much higher, what's probably being said is this has got out of control. They are out of the picture, and then whatever comes after that,
AI.
Is
do you think that's why we've seen the removal of the Queen and Prince Philip and George Bush Sr. and Kissinger and people like this, or is it just that they're old bastards?
As soon as Jimmy Savile died, Grandmaster Ginny, it was very clear that the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha lost some of its power. They
lost its wizard.
Yeah, their John Dee was gone, their Rasputin was gone, and ever since then, it's like they're questionable if it's even really them turning up. They're not wearing their proper crowns, etc., and all these things. Those videos of how Trump was walking in front of the Queen and stuff.
They're just tourist attractions.
That is significant because. Yeah,
they're just tourist attractions now.
Yeah, but they're the head of the pantomime as well. So it is all significant.
If it's all turning to shit, what's the point in selling everything? Because there'll be no money.
I think it's deliberately going to shit because they want to say, oh, everything's gone to shit so much. Right, humans can't be trusted. Right, we hand it over to AI. Everything's going to be governed by AI.
I think the problem is the bigger the lie, the more obvious the bullshit. And what we're seeing now, because we're looking at it even more and more and more than we probably were pre-2020, which is hard to think. But we haven't. The download we've had since 2020 has been huge, hasn't it? Absolutely. Can you imagine what an NPC has gone through on the other way down?
They've had it all at once, jumping directly into the deep end, 33 meters deep.
But with that, they get a lot of stuff wrong. The people who haven't studied the occult for years and years, they have got in common with people that have is they know not to take the fucking injection.
Yeah,
that's that, and they know kids get fucked by the elites.
Yes,
that's pretty much all they know, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would say that this past year, 2023, has been a big year where that has been revealed across the spectrum, all throughout the truther community, with various. When it's psyop after psyop after psyop, it's almost like it's constantly trimming.
It's a wheel. It's a wheel
trimming the fat.
Another big thing I've seen this year within the podcasting type thing is we don't do it, but other podcasters ganging up on other podcasters, which I find a bit
Oh,
strange.
mate, that's what I'm saying.
I've seen
They've
that
got
happening.
everyone exactly where they want them. All the
Yeah.
people who kind of know what's going on or just know they're being bullshitted are all arguing amongst themselves. Everyone's trying to outdo each other by putting on different events
Back
and
to window liquor
copying
again,
each
aren't we?
other and slagging each other off behind their back to other people, and it's all just bitching, man. And nothing's going to change with that mentality because it's all just.
But that
fucking
mentality
ego.
that Andy's going on about there is that mentality. It's that.
It's satanic.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and that's how they want it. They're looking
Yeah, exactly.
down thinking,
That's what I'm saying. There's they've got everyone where they want you to. Right.
Even if it goes wrong, Andy, they've caused chaos, so it's irrelevant.
Because everyone is satanic at core because they're running after money. At the end of the day, that's
what
it.
I would say though is there's an element of people that see I won't say know the whole thing, but see a lot of it. Like probably, and it sounds a bit arrogant, but probably people who are listening to this and what have you see a lot of what's going on, and we don't sort of change. We just learn even more. So there is an element of the opposite of that as well, isn't there? There's always an element of the opposite
well,
of that.
For me, it's about detachment. What you said there, Dom, I think is really important because for me this year, 2023, was actually more about detachment.
Living in it, not of it.
Absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
I've had a great time.
Yeah, we talked about building the mental fortress. We talked about recatalyzing all this stuff and so using comedy and satire to de-weaponize what's going on. But for me now, it's sort of like I'm not needing to feel like I have to. Obviously, I keep up with things for the show, but I'm not feeling like I have to be exposing all these sites now because all of it's doing is it's just filtering. It's just constantly filtering the consciousness. And as far as I can see, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because,
it's separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, it's just a harvest. It's just
it's another harvest. It's a harvest within a harvest.
The law of one or the right channel is that the great harvest is upon us. Yeah. And I see that as a metaphor and as something very real that's happening on so many different scales. It's definitely a filtering as we approach the eschaton, the nexus point.
Think about Savage Javed when he was sweating his tits off that time when he was saying, when they were going to stop nurses and you had to get jib jabs, otherwise you're going to lose your job. And within that week, and he was saying, you've got to do it this week. And I remember seeing him on news sweating his tits off, looking really stressed.
Just got knighted, Chris.
And then they backtracked it, didn't they?
But you've seen all these people. Sorry, Chris, I thought you were finishing.
You immediately think, oh, we've got to win there. As reaction has actually made him back off. But then you can't help thinking there's someone in the background going,
yeah, exactly.
You don't know, do you? We don't know. One thing I will say is we what they played on during the nonsense was, fear and survival. But we're all going to go. So we've just got to watch it.
But then they're playing on that other side when Mark opened up with it's a fear of
you're not even safe in heaven.
You're not even safe.
If you think about it, the Vikings, like the so-called Vikings, what we've been taught, the Norsemen, who we've been taught about in schools and stuff, they didn't fear death, they actually praised it, where they looked forward to dying.
They were only concerned with how they died.
That's it. It wasn't a negative thing.
Was that an early psyop to get them to
I don't know. Yeah, but you think about it now, like we're just trained to fear death because we're going to miss our loved ones. We're going to be alone or whatever, and of course that is a fact.
But every culture welcomed death.
But
exactly.
Did they have a good death?
And that's the thing. There's so much fear in the truth scene because people are gobbling up these multiple psyops, and it's speeding up exponentially. It's getting crazier. But next year will be even crazier than just this year. If you carry on eating that up and ingesting it, and you're just living in a constant state of tension and fear, or just living within these psyops, constantly talking about
you'll
them,
die.
Yeah.
There'll be a suicide booth at a fucking Christmas market next year.
And even if all of this does happen on the projected timeline, I don't have any fear whatsoever. I don't fear any of this stuff that we joke about on the show. I literally don't fear it whatsoever. And even if it did happen, it ain't for us.
No.
We're too old. Anyone that listens to our show, even if you're 18 years old now, you're actually too old to really appreciate what their plans are, even on their current trajectories. It's going to be very, very slow. It's going to be very, very gradual. There's going to be pivotal things that are going to happen. Probably, I reckon we're going to have some sort of like Black Swan event next year, personally.
Yeah. One of my first early realizations that wet fish slap round the face moment was that humans are an outdated model, and and they wanted to, we're too diverse. There's too, even though in reality, if you look at us all, we're very easy to look after. Give them a pint and a pie and a football game type of thing, and a holiday to Torremolinos. People are happy, aren't they? You know,
Yeah, mate.
generally.
I
But
think
they don't actually want that existence for people anymore, do they?
no. And
Yeah.
I think it's a pissing contest between the dark occultists.
The trading places bet,
Who
the
can
dollar bet.
enslave the most people, or who can take away the most freedoms
Who's got the most
from the
imagination?
most? Yeah, I think it's now a pissing contest.
Well, I think from their point of view, right, the average peasant nowadays actually probably can travel better than they could 500 years ago.
Yes. Yeah,
Or
on the,
even
on the
actually
Mayflower.
a couple of hundred years ago. Yeah. Right now, your average everyday earning 30, 40 grand a year peasant can afford to maybe have a holiday, 2 holidays, you know,
And a 600-foot TV screen in front room.
Yeah.
But then are we
We've got
guilty
it
of
too
that
good.
Life of Brian thing? But what did the Romans ever do for us? Are we
But
doing
without
that right now? Is that what we're doing?
Just listen to this. Just coming to my head now. You think without us being to travel around and have your big TV screen, all these nice experiences, when they bring in the all governing AI, your 15-minute Schwab cities, you're not allowed to go out into nature, you're not allowed to fly, you're not allowed to go out of your designated peasant
95%
pen.
of the earth is penned off.
You're gonna cry out for that VR headset, aren't you?
Yeah.
Or your Neuro Schwab link to get out for some escapism.
Or a British
By then the
passport.
Yeah, exactly. You
And
think
your bitch tits jab upgrade.
because you'll have something to
100%.
miss. And then once the peasantry who have subjected to that then have kids, their kids will see that as the normal thing to do.
It's
And
that
then when
fleas in
their
a-
parents
fleas in a
die, they've
jar,
got
innit?
kids, and
The fleas in a
that's it.
jar.
Then they've got
Yeah.
everyone in the digital prison.
totally.
That's it.
Digital
In,
fleas.
I reckon 3 generations to come.
Guaranteed you'll have to be fully jabbed to go into the metaverse.
Yeah.
It actually happens. Like not the shit they've got now, like the proper metaverse. When you've got, you know, when you have your Neuralink plugged in and you've got your latest download, right? You're ready to go live. Let me see your.
There'll be
Potential for being
digital
virtually
viruses
raped.
that you could be carrying that you need to
Yeah.
get vaccinated
Britney
against.
Spears in the metaverse.
Yeah.
And then you always
Wow.
think, I always think on a biblical level, if once they've got you in that metaverse and you're stuck there, and then is it like, you know, that people will want to die and they won't be able to die because you just be fucking trapped in the metaverse?
I
And
said
Maybe
this
it's a soul
turn
trap.
hell
I
on.
said this to Lance.
Soul trap simulation.
I said this to Lance in 2020 when they were talking about, it was late 2020 when they were talking about the development of the Britney Spears injection. I said to Lance, I was like, mate, it was when Bill Gates was talking about his energy harvesting crypto thing. If you would do like, I don't know, like an hour on the treadmill or something like
the
that.
patent was
You-
666 2020.
Yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would, you know, you'd get it if you did, I don't know, if you watched some movie or some adverts or
There's
something.
no physical exercise involved. It was literally watching some adverts and it
do
was just calming
something,
your
and you-
reactions.
I wonder
Bill
if
Gates,
that
does
is.
Bill Gates look like he does any sort of exercise?
And no. But then I was wondering,
He's got
like, if,
tassels on his tits.
if you
Looks
do
like he's
that kind
expecting
of thing,
twins.
if you're like,
Yeah.
if you take these injections, like, I wonder if you're then, when you die, you don't die how you're supposed to die, and you end up in this soul trap of farming crypto for Bill Gates, like from your soul.
If there was a
Nice.
roulette
Nice
wheel,
thought, Andy.
if there was a roulette wheel and that was one of the choices, I would honestly put chips on it.
Yeah,
I would
like,
honestly
so
put
your
chips on that.
soul is then eternally harvesting
Is
digital
that the
currency.
reason why
for the
in these
elite?
games you've got sort of, when you get killed, you've got extra lives.
Respawn. Yeah.
You respawn, you reborn.
Yeah, they're just building a battery within a battery, Rick and Morty style.
Yeah.
Just along the road in the pub, there's a bunch of normies with a pie and a pint doing the quiz night or the karaoke, thinking everything's just fine in the world.
Talking about
That's,
Wayne
that's
Rooney being
normal.
sacked.
Who remembers the Red Dwarf episode? We're all old enough to remember Red
I
Dwarf,
used to
right?
love that show. man. I
There's a
used to love
very,
it.
very famous Red Dwarf episode. There's actually 2 of them where this happens. One of them, they voluntarily connect themselves to a computer game. And the other one, there was an intergalactic squid that sprayed hallucinogenic thing on them. Anyway, they were living their whole life. The 4 characters of Red Dwarf, they were living alternate lives. And it was a full-on computer game that you went into for 4 years and you forgot who you were and you lived an alternate life. And, you know, when you got taken out of it, completely disorientated. So all of this stuff has been predictably
Well, it's
programmed.
been 4 years since the nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just going to wake
Get
up.
through it.
Yeah.
Wake up in another realm. And, you know, I'd reach age 70, reach point 70 on that game.
Yeah. But I don't think since the nonsense, is it, Mark? It's just a continuation, isn't it?
Well,
Continue.
all right, the onset of the nonsense.
Yeah.
Never really goes away, does it?
No.
No, but we better learn to live with it. I think that's our motto at Rise Above. It's like that.
And also, though, Lance, I said a few times in our podcast, some of it's quite exciting in a way because it's like we're in a film script, but it just goes on for years instead of an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
very
as long
enlightening.
as you can develop that detachment from it and view it like that, like the greatest show on earth. And I think
That's
that that's at the end of the day, that's what we really try and foster with the show, is to really, if this is, whether you like it or not, even if you don't watch the mainstream media, even if you try not to watch TV, this stuff is going to continue to be pumped out into everyone else around you, and they're going to be organs of it. So you better sharpen up your
You
Ramen
can't get away from it.
No,
You're going to be subjected to it.
if you don't recatalyze it, you're going to end up ingesting it.
I tell you what I find interesting. My supposed to be daughter-in-law now, she was telling me about an argument she got into for not jabbing my grandson. She weren't into not jabbing, by the way, 4 or 5 years ago. And so the next generations, how many people have we unknowingly actually, not just about jabs or anything like that, but realised, so they're training now my grandson, if you like, in the alternative world. Unknowingly, he doesn't know yet. He's only 2, Your daughter's the same, Chris. My 12-year-old, my daughter, my eldest son, he's the same. A lot of these kids now from our generation, from what we're doing, are being taught that world. She got called a fool for not giving my grandson a MMR jab.
And the most important thing to add to that is that...
Sorry, Lance. By who? It was one of her friends whose dad has had a heart condition from the divot tap. And she said, "Well, don't you believe?" She said it was like I was saying it to this girl. She said, "She's obviously been listening." She said, "Yeah, but the pharmaceutical company owns the same jabs, so why would you trust them for either?" And she said, "You're a fool for not having that. That's tried and tested."
And I think that's why it's so important.
Sorry,
we're doing what we're doing in this what we call new organic media, right? We've got people that watch the show avidly, and obviously their kids watch it because they put it on, they cast it onto their TV. So like you say, exactly the same.
This is one positive, Lance.
That is a positive thing, Mark. Is that what we're doing?
You can choose what to consume when you think about the old days where you were stuck watching, your parents coming on watching BBC 1, 2, and 3.
You had 4 channels.
Yeah, 4 channels. I remember 3, but you can choose what to consume, can't you? You can switch that off and move over to that, and you can.
I also think going back, I'll use Alex Jones as an example. He was a preacher, weren't he? He was telling people, "You need to work it. You've got to work." We're dealing with a much more mature audience now, aren't we? We're all mature researchers ourselves. Some of the people that listen have got more knowledge than we have on most of the subjects, and so we're only communicating this information en masse, if you like. We respect our audience. You know what I mean? I'm not saying other people didn't. We're not trying to be teachers, if you like, either.
Yeah, we try to never preach to people. All we're trying to do, much like yourselves, is to provide a platform so these ideas and this information can be freely discussed, not preaching it, not ramming it down people's throats, not sticking our sword in the dirt on any particular subject and saying this is the truth. We have to believe this.
All doors are open at every moment. Yeah.
The reason I personally do Rise Above is because I don't fucking want to be dragged into the rest of the shit.
It's because Lance walked in on you while you were asleep. While you were having an out-of-body moment.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't want to get the problem is, if the world gets enslaved, I'm going to get enslaved with them, whether I know what's going on or not. Same as you, same as Lance, same as Mark, same as Nathan. Everyone, and Chris, same as everyone, all the truthers that know what's going on, they're still going to get enslaved if everyone doesn't,
Yeah, if everyone out there that's not on our wavelengths and stuff, they're in most part, a lot of them, I believe, are letting the world create them. Whereas when you become empowered with this type of information, this viewpoint that us guys have, and you create this little media sphere within the larger truther community that speaks about it in this mature way, and then kids get involved, they're going out and with that as an understanding and a clear, mature way to progress. And that's why it's really, really fucking.
I also hear kids saying, about, say, I use transgender as an example. I hear my young kids saying, "Well, a boy's a boy." The girls are they're actually seeing this now not because we're pointing it out, because we're allowing them to talk about it, things at home that their friends don't talk about, that don't discuss.
Because it's off the menu.
It's off the menu.
Hey guys, just on that note, on that happy note, well, Mark's hoping to wrap up in a minute, but what I was just going to say is
we're staying all night.
No, well, you could be. In line with what you've just been saying there about spreading the message, look, I just want to say personal thanks to you, both Rise Above and Sheep Farm, and just to say that everybody here, what you're doing is important. And so the message, I guess, is just keep your spirits up as much as you can and keep doing what you're doing. Because
Thank
you know,
you,
so
Nathan.
there you
Thank you,
go.
Nathan.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hand it over to Mark. And look, it's been a real pleasure, guys. Seriously,
No, it's been nice to meet you.
Really nice to
Nice
have
to
you.
meet
mate.
you.
Awesome.
finally.
Yeah, finally, yeah.
All right, then. Well, I guess we'll wrap up there. We're beyond 2 hours. Don't do predictions. We just do coping mechanisms. Who knows
Yeah.
where we'll be in 12 months? I'm sure we'll be able to do a Clown World 2024 show if we're not all in super prisons or gulags or whatever.
Or Clown World Simulation World.
Yeah.
Mark, can I just butt in and ask you a real quick question? I know you want to wrap up, but I
Go
don't
ahead.
know the next chance I'm going to have to speak to you. I was just wondering, because I know I've read your books and you've cited a lot of Thomas Sheridan stuff in you've just mentioned him before in your presentations and stuff. And I'm friends with him on Facebook. I follow them. I think he's put out some great stuff. But recently, I've been seeing some weird posts from him, like he's been in support of Marina Abramovic and stuff like that, and saying that she's a renowned artist and she's actually like a really good person and stuff like that. And I was just wondering what you thought of him. Is he a psyop? Is he controlled opposition?
He's already blocks me.
Yeah, but did he Lance on Facebook? But I've just been seeing these really weird posts recently, especially one about Marina Abramovic. And then I clicked in the comments and read about it, and loads of people saying, "No, she's satanic. She's a satanic witch. She's weirdo, blah blah." And he was saying, "No, if you actually look into her, she's actually really gentle and a nice person, and she's trying to teach everyone like a deeper lesson and stuff like that." And I was just thinking, what you
conceptual artist?
yeah,
No,
what
that's
I was
not
wondering
good.
what you thought of the Thomas Sheridan.
That's not good. I've not
no.
looked at Thomas Sheridan's work for a number of years. I did quote him in Musical Truth Volume 1
Yeah.
because I thought he had some interesting things to say about consent and contracting and stuff like that. But if he's bigging up Marina Abramovich, that's not a good look.
No,
it's not good.
Can I just read
He
you
said,
something?
he said some great things.
Can I just
2020
read you something, Mark, real quick? I know you want to
Try to
wrap up.
wrap up.
I know. I'm so sorry. So Marina Abramovic.
You're not sorry at all, Andy.
Marina
Columbo,
Abramovic.
innit?
Marina Abramovic has gone far beyond performance art and into the world of modern shamanism. From a corpse of Yugoslavia, she has created a Balkan Tantra, a legitimate shamanism as our ancient ancestors knew it to be. She has nourished the spirit world, and in return, they have made contact with us once again. She was the only person capable of doing this. Thomas Sheridan.
It's not good. It's not good. And what you've outlined there reminds me of Neil Sanders, to be honest, in terms of what happened with him. Because I used to follow Neil Sanders. I've quoted his
really
work
like
as
his
well.
work. Yeah,
I thought he was a real switched on guy that knew what was going on, but I think he's shown his true colours.
He turned on Richard,
3 or
didn't he?
4 years. He's been reinforcing government narratives. He's been saying that the government didn't go far enough in enforcing the convid tyranny. And so, as
Got
far
that
as
new
I'm concerned, he's eventually shown his true colours. So I think what you have with a lot of these characters is that they build a fan base, they get people to trust them, and then at a given moment they flick the switch and they just flip and leave people confused, disorientated. Charlie Freak's another one. And you just don't know what to make of them, but they always show their true colours in the end.
Do we think these people are actually agents, or do you think with the control, for some reason they can be controlled externally? I mean, whatever the reason is,
I think most of them would be agents, it would turn out.
It's
Flip
probably usually
on a mission from day one. Yeah.
It's surprising how deep, as we know with the research that you do, we do, how deep this goes and how controlling this realm is, isn't it? Because the level of detail they put into this is amazing. You've got to stand back and admire the level of detail sometime, haven't you?
Mark and Nathan are feeling controlled by you right this minute.
You have.
I blame Andy.
I'm
But
sorry. I'm
also-
sorry. I had to. I didn't know when I was going to speak to and I said to Lance when he reminded me we were coming on your show. I was like, right, I'll definitely.
He said to Lance, "Fuck it, we'll do 4 hours here."
No, I just.
Well, this is a short
only
show, to
4
be fair.
hours.
Because I was confused because I followed Thomas Sheridan's work for a long time, and then he said some good stuff in 2020 and 2021, and then all of a sudden, like Mark said, he's just flipped the switch.
pro
And now
Israel.
he's pro, yeah.
He's pro NASA. He's pro the moon landing. I've seen him battering people, saying the moon landing's real, getting out all the.
He's full anti-Tartaria. He calls it.
I think we'll see more of this. Oh yeah, he's
I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
Well,
he's
I
an
think
Irish
you could
researcher.
consider them sleeper agents.
Mm.
You know, they toe the line for a number of years and they get people on their side. You get the same thing with musicians. So during the nonsense, you had Neil Young coming out, and
great
he was
example.
supported by Joni Mitchell, and these were heroes of the 60s counterculture, and ostensibly they were against the man and they were all for the people and all this. And then in their advanced years, and their 70s or 80s, whatever they are, they come out in support of the Britney Spears and, you know, slamming Spotify for hosting that Joe Rogan show with Dr. Robert Malone on it. So that's like a sleeper agent for 50 years. But
Scary,
then
isn't it?
eventually
Yeah.
they show their true colors and let you know that they're actually owned and they're pushing agendas.
Dolly
So,
Parton, another one. Dolly
You- oh,
Parton.
6 million to Pfizer.
Dolly Parton.
Yeah, she was another one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. So it's all very disappointing, but it just reinforces one of my favorite slogans, which is "No more heroes." And I would just add to that, "At all, ever."
That's all ever.
Not
Yeah.
bad advice, that.
Yeah.
Not even us. Definitely not us either.
Well, we don't want to be heroes, do we? Any of us?
No,
I
I'm
don't
not
think.
interested.
No.
No.
I just
No.
want to be left alone.
Far from it. Yeah. Just leave me alone.
We don't want followers. It'd just be
No,
nice
I don't
if people
wanna
would
be a
pay
cult
attention to
leader.
Just
some of the
wanna
stuff
know-
we say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to have a nice little YouTube channel.
But
That's all.
as I said to Lance a few months ago, this type of work isn't career enhancing.
No, it's
No.
completely the opposite. Right.
But you know,
No.
something struck me earlier in the conversation. We were talking about warriors and Viking warlords and things like this, and they used shields and swords and things like that to go into battle. And in the 2020s, podcasts are the new weaponry, aren't they? You know,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
what we
Armed
use
with
now to
memes.
go to war. It's information wars,
Mm.
and a podcast is a weapon. That's what we all do.
It's all
We're
a bit
warriors.
pussy, though, isn't it? Really.
Well,
We're living on
Maybe
the-
the job could have been finished in 2020.
we have a bit of
if
an
we'd
easier
put, you
time
know-
of it than Viking warlords did. Yeah,
well,
admittedly.
I'll leave my sword fighting to Assassin's Creed.
In the future, it'll just be Schwab bots fighting with codes
In the
transmitted
metaverse.
through 33G, and that'll be
Yeah.
it. You know?
But Chris's robot dogs.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to cap the show here because I don't do 3 a.m. finishes anymore. I gave all that up in my DJing years.
Yeah.
So I know this is a brief show by your standards at 2
No,
hours,
we
20 minutes.
kind of
but,
keep it about 3 hours these days, Mark.
Yeah, pretty
yeah.
conservative.
Oh, you've limited it. Yeah.
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 Okay. Have an early night. All right, then. So thanks, everyone, for taking part, to Nathan, to Dom and Chris, to Lance and Andy. So Rise Above, guys, just remind the listeners where they can catch your show and what you've got coming up.
On YouTube, we are Rise Above Live. The website, riseabove.tv, will take you to all of our videos and all of our content, as well as our merchandise like hoodies and t-shirts and stuff. In the next couple of weeks, what have we got going on? Next week, we've got Inspector Veg coming on to do a veggie versus vegan debate. And I've also got Joe Ward, child abuse campaigner, who's just dropped a new documentary, which does involve Jimmy Savile.
You want to mention Anarchapulco?
Oh, yeah. Also, in early February, we are featuring at Anarchapulco, or Run Acapulco, as it's called now, 2024, which is in Acapulco, Mexico.
Virtually or in person?
Virtually, unfortunately.
Oh.
But you know,
Maybe next year.
maybe next year we'll get flown out. That'll be pretty sick. So yeah, big up Jason at Archaics for that link, who recommended for
And
us.
thank you to Rebecca.
And big
as
shout
well.
out to Rebecca, who watches our show and thinks we're very entertaining. So we're going to do a little a presentation there on some of what we've actually been talking about tonight, about the special things that we've tried to been fostering with the mindset of getting through this. We call it, Ramesh philosophy. We're going to do a very fun presentation.
Well, it's what it means to be Ramesh.
Yeah, what it means to be Ramesh. Can you show them your
Yeah,
t-shirt,
yeah.
please? It's one of the new designs.
This is
So
a
yeah,
Ramesh
riseabove.tv or Rise Above Live on YouTube. almost every Friday night at 9 p.m.
All right, cool. I'm sporting a sheep farm t-shirt here.
Oh, wicked! That's really cool. I'm gonna have to get
Awesome. We haven't got.
I need
We're
to
gonna
send
have
you
to
some
do,
down,
we're gonna have
don't
to
I?
do some t-shirts.
Oh, and he's got
I'll
an
send
old
you some down.
school Mark Devlin t-shirt here. Yeah.
Nice.
I've actually got
Blast
one
from
of
the
my
past.
own my own hand-drawn designs. This one is the Ouroboros rabbit. It's like the Ouroboros, but it's a rabbit in its tail to
rabbit
represent
hole.
the infinite, everlasting rabbit
Good.
hole. If you get caught in, if you're an unsuccessful truther. So,
if,
yeah,
if
it's
you
a
get
warning.
if you get caught up by a cul-de-sac,
merchant, like Russell Brand. Yeah, that was a new one we coined earlier.
we coined that before the show, a cul-de-sac merchant. Like you just get led down a cul-de-sac of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Someone who
There's a
sells
lot of
you
them
a
around, it turns out.
Yeah.
Talking of rabbit holes, how many of those have you fallen down lately, Dom? Where's your research taken you? What's
I fell
coming up?
down an Elon Musk one, an interesting one. I found out he'd been trying to buy some intercontinental ballistic missiles in the early 2000s.
Arsenal, yeah.
Before he said,
That's really what you want from somebody who's got loads of satellites in space.
exactly.
No, don't worry, he's on our side.
Yeah, he's on
One
our
of
side.
us.
This was before he set SpaceX up. We went to Russia to buy some intercontinental ballistic missiles with someone who worked at that in QTEL from CIA. Yeah.
Interesting.
So that was an I've always wanted an angle on Elon Musk, and now I've found several links back to the CIA.
Look into his
so we
mother
know-
as well, Dom. Look into
I've looked
Elon
into his
Musk's
mother. I looked into his mother. I looked into his background. I got all that. His dad owning an emerald mine and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted an angle because that was pretty.
His
lame
mum
for
is
me.
a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, yeah, she's
Yeah.
full on. I wanted an angle, and the links back to the intelligence services just they're unarguable. You don't go to Russia and buy intercontinental ballistic missiles, or attempt to.
Maybe he's buying them for the white hats.
Exactly. Anyway, he got turned
Still
down
no
for
plumbers.
he got turned down for them, Lance, the missiles. So on the flight back with this CIA guy, he says, "We'll just build his own rockets." Just like that. That's what you do.
Right.
And he got
That's why his rockets always blow up, because they're actually
Yeah.
intercontinental missiles.
Yeah.
He's firing at the dome.
So from a standing start, the company got a $3.3 billion contract from NASA. It hadn't even flown a rocket yet.
3.3.
Yeah, I think it was 3.3. I'd said that by just guessing, but it went 3 billion plus anyway, put it that way. But anyway, so Elon Musk, I'm on with Huxley, doing the Huxleys this time, not just necessarily the people that are linked there, the Huxley family. So, yeah, that's what I've been doing over Christmas. And I'm writing a book.
Oh.
Which we're going to present a bit of on Rise Above when Chris gets his finger out and does a drawing.
Oh yeah, shit! I forgot to mention you guys are on the week after, aren't you?
Yeah,
19th.
Yeah,
There you go.
19th. Yeah,
Cheers, Dom.
yeah.
Cool.
Enemies of the State. So you can guess what that's about.
And we're on sheepfarm.co.uk.
Yeah, sheepfarm.co.uk. We're not as flash as this lot with
Awesome,
25
man.
different
Awesome.
websites.
What have you got in the works, Mark?
Oh, well, I'm doing the audiobook of my new, here it is, thank you, my
Yeah.
new novel, voicing that at the moment. When that's done, well, I've got a whole bunch of talks coming up as ever.
Non-stop tour.
Your
I know,
world
I-
tour continues.
You were in Australia recently, weren't you?
I was in Australia, yeah, in November. I did a mini speaking tour there. That was great. I did 4 speaking gigs. I'm actually looking to do a US East Coast mini tour in April. This will fuel all kinds of accusations of his paymasters are giving him an MI6 salary to go and do all these gigs. If only you knew the truth of the matter. But I am trying to make that happen. I want to do some events in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. So there's the first announcement of
Sick.
that.
If you're
So
if you're going to go to Philadelphia, you're going to try and link up with Mark Passio at all?
it would be rude not to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be cool.
It
Yeah.
really would, yeah.
Because
And
I think he's
he can
getting
shout at me for a couple of days
back.
for not having a beard. I should have a beard, really. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, thanks guys for coming on the show.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
sure
Mark.
we'll do Clown World 2024. There'll be no shortage of things to talk about.
If we're
But
not
in
in
the
the
meantime-
gulag.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Doing it from his bunkers.
In the meantime, have a great 2024 and catch you somewhere along the way.
Cheers,
See
Matt.
you in a bit.
See you again.
Cheers for
Awesome,
now.
guys. Thanks,
Maximum
Mark.
respect. Thank
All
you.
right.
See you, fellas.
Okay.
See you later, boys.